today?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and start recording, please?
Recording in progress.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 morning session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, it's always great to see you. Please call the roll.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Hardesty.
Here.
Max.
Here.
Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. Under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city's made several avenues available to the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGov PDX, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, and Channel 30. The public can also provide written testimony to the council by emailing the council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact and to promote physical distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications. Thanks to everyone for your patience, your flexibility, and your continued understanding as we manage through this difficult situation to conduct the city's council business. And with that, we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the city council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Thank you very much. First up is communications. Keelan, first individual, please. Item number 665.
Request of Eileen Frommer to address council regarding Zenith Energy.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor Hardy. It's wonderful to be here. I'm Eileen Frommer, and I am with the Zenith Work Group. And we are a group of activists from organizations that you know very well, such as 350 and Columbia Riverkeeper. And I'm just so excited to be here, primarily just to thank you for the years of work that you have done around Zenith. And I, for one, just experienced a jolt of joy on Friday, August 27th, when I heard that you denied the Lux. I did not expect it. And I just want to assure you and be sure that you know that we know this is not over. We're very aware of that. And we are here to support the Lux denial, and we'll do everything that our amazing group of activists can do to support that denial. Commissioner Ryan, I especially want to address you and let you know how grateful we are to you and your staff for all the work you have done. I know it was a steep learning curve for you, so we really appreciate that. And as you explained, the Lux was denied because of the impacts of the Zenith facility on our city's environment, impacts on historically marginalized group, and to promote our clean energy future. And speaking of our clean energy future and Zenith, they are promoting biofuels. They're saying that after the fossil fuels, they're going to go to biofuels, and biofuels are not clean energy. They need to harvest biomass primarily from the soil, whether it's soybeans or corn or wood residues. And this fuel is grown and harvested on an ever decreasing amount of arable land due to drought and climate change. Growers of biomass poison the earth with pesticides and practice monoculture, which depletes the earth. And this is not sustainable. So Mayor and Commissioners, I'm not exaggerating at all when I say you are our heroes. We are in love with all of you and with this decision. And, you know, we're doing it for our children and our children's children. And speaking of children, Commissioner Hardesty, do you remember back in 2019 at Willamette University when 15-year-old Caroline was speaking? And she said, when she is your age, it will be 2060. And at that time, she asked, where is it? When I am your age, will I be able to enjoy the same abundance that was passed on to you? And through the action of denying the Lux, you show that you take this seriously. And it is a very serious issue. We all know that. So the Lux denial is an essential action that honors our environment. It honors our tribal commitments and moves us toward a sustainable future. It also honors our marginalized communities. So I wanted to say that. So just remember, I'm running out of time. So I want to say really quickly that we know it's not over. We are here to support you through the entire process. We will be following it very closely. And most of all, just thank you, thank you, thank you for doing the right thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Eileen, I just want to say that you've been the most organized advocacy group since I showed up at City Hall 3 years ago. Because I know the power of your organizing, I'm asking you today publicly if you will join the effort to help Portland reemerge to be the city we all love. You have a network that is untapped, and we need you. We need you to be partners with us in reimagining what Portland looks like when we come out of this pandemic. You guys can do it because the kind of pressure you put on us very nicely and sometimes not so nicely has been really incredible. I know the people in your coalition care about Portland because you wouldn't have fought so hard the fight that you've been involved in. We need you. We need logical thinking people who aren't moved by political whim or extremes, but people who are thoughtful enough to sit at a table and figure out how do we support our community re-emerging. We need you. So this is my call to action to you and your group. We need you, and we need you to be part of helping us rebuild Portland into the pride that it can be.
Thank you. We will be, and maybe we need to have a conversation about specifics. But yes, definitely.
Very good. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you, Eileen. Next individual, please, Keelan, item 666.
Request of Grady Preston II to address council regarding police oversight.
Good morning.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Before I start, I just wanted to provide a brief content warning as my comments will talk about police violence and be explicit, including a small GIF of screenshots that show police violence. So I will now begin. Hello, my name is Grady Preston II, and these words are my own personal opinion about the egregious negligence of the self-appointed police commissioner, Ted Wheeler. During Mr. Wheeler's tenure as police commissioner, he has allowed the highest increase in police brutality incidents across the nation. On August 31st, we were forced to watch in horror as one of his officers repeatedly punched a terrified OHSU nurse in the face with illegal SAP gloves, nearly killing him. Then not 2 weeks ago, Commissioner Wheeler and his strategic director, Sam Adams, permitted the Proud Boys to run free in park roads, allowing them to terrorize and nearly kill our BIPOC neighbors. The next day, Wheeler chalked it up as a success for his office in a macabre string of tweets. He calls all violence unacceptable, yet he continues to work with his DA to disproportionately punish Black Lives Matter protesters with 5+ year prison sentences for juvenile crimes, while handing a fascist Proud Boy gunman who fired multiple live rounds at a crowd downtown probation. These are the responses of a white supremacist, or someone who is grossly out of touch with the realities of our society. The police commissioner's actions continue to demonstrate that he does not care about this city or its community members unless they donated tens of thousands of dollars to his campaign. The message he sends to the public is that his office is just a means to climb the political ladder. Thousands of our neighbors now walk the streets with very real and resonant pain from the brutality of 4 years of this man's PPP oversight. Under his timid leadership, we have seen our community members' kneecaps, skulls, and faces shattered by police batons, arms and legs fractured by incorrectly fired tear gas canisters, and even more have extremely painful and irregular menstrual cycles and asthma from his unforgivable bombardment of chemical weapons. This physical and emotional trauma is the only real contribution he has managed to provide during his term. I encourage anyone listening to reach out to Total Recall PDX to join recalling the self-appointed police commissioner, Tevis Wheeler, for his repeated indefensible failures to hold his officers accountable and commit to his campaign promises. Or better yet, resign now. Free Raven and all political prisoners. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You're certainly entitled to your opinion. I do want to state, though, that there was factual misinformation that you provided. I do not control the prosecution. That is beyond the purview of the city of Portland, but I do support your First Amendment right to be here and speak your mind, and I appreciate you being here. Keela, next individual, please, item 667.
Request of Eben Jindef-Hoffer to address council regarding Music Portland policy agenda.
Good morning.
You're on mute.
Oops. I'm not Eben. This is Mara McLaughlin for the record of Music Portland. And good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to share my screen. And share screen. Oh, there it is. I am here to, first of all, thank you for your support in the last budget round and for all the actions you've taken. You know how appreciative I am of what you do. I'm before you today to unveil the Music Portland policy agenda and ask for your continued commitment to support Portland's music ecosystem. There's a lot more to do. Our policy agenda includes 7 discrete policy changes that we believe will enable live music to thrive in the coming years, especially as we welcome live music back to Portland for the first time since COVID struck. We've previewed these priorities with each of your offices and explored the specific roles each of you might play in making Portland a truly music-friendly city. We're ready to get to work and we'll be requesting follow-up meetings with each of you. We built our agenda around 3 common themes: clarifying regulations, streamlining enforcement and oversight, and reducing conflicts with police. These are common sense best practices that happen in every major city, such as having 1 objective noise code instead of 2 conflicting codes that Portland currently has, acting proactively to prevent future conflicts, and giving some basic protections to existing businesses against changing neighborhoods. Portland's reliance on a complaint-based system with subjective noise standards enforced by an armed police officer enables the loudest voices with the least pure intentions. Call it what it is, systemic racism. It's not a coincidence that police are regularly used to shut down music enjoyed by Black and Brown people or performed by Black and Brown musicians, even when operating within the legal bounds of their noise permits. For the last several months, we've been meeting with a broad coalition of partners to show their support for the Music Portland policy agenda. And we're proud to have the endorsements of over 35 organizations as shown here. The breadth and diversity of these endorsers demonstrates how our music culture is uniquely potent as an agent for social cohesion in a city that's fractured. These organizations recognize that Portland must be strategic and intentional in everything we do if we're going to succeed in the long term. We urge you to embrace these policies and to work with us to enact small changes that will have real results. If this body does not act with intention and urgency regarding music, we risk losing not only the soul of our city, but a vital thread that can help bind us back together. I'm available if anybody has questions. Otherwise, I look forward to working with each of you on this important work. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your testimony this morning. We appreciate your agenda. Commissioner Hardesty.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. Some of your agenda impacts bureaus that are in my portfolio, and we're certainly looking forward to working with you to make live music more accessible in more parts of the city for more people. So thank you for all you do. Appreciate it.
Next individual, please, Keelan, item 667. I'm sorry, I've got that wrong. 668.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Request of D. White to address council regarding city fails to protect public health, a 3-minute story on lead in our drinking water.
Good morning, Dee.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Am I being heard?
Yeah, we can hear you. You sound
okay.
good.
I'm sorry. Good morning. My name is Dee White. I'm here again on behalf of Portland Advocates for Lead-Free Drinking Water. A few months ago, President Biden said there's hundreds of flints, reminding all that lead in water is a top public health priority. Portland has been called out in national news, congressional testimony, and by policy and science experts for its legendary high lead in our drinking water. Advocates here are dismissed. Why is your bureau still convincing the public that our drinking water is safe if they haven't yet fixed dangerous lead? As we've explained before, this bar chart, which I don't really see on the screen, but anyway, the bar chart shows how well a water utility's treatment is working. The higher the bar, the more lead. Gresham, Rockwood also buy water from Portland, explaining the high lead in their city as well. When Newark, New Jersey's schools revealed a wider municipal lead problem in 2016, much like a canary in a coal mine, free home filters were provided until they removed pipes and optimized their treatment. Today, they're at half of Portland's lead levels. We must reject the Water Bureau's alternative step-by-step slow walk approach. Prevention is absolutely key. So here again is Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, because she knows what the eyes don't see. Could you please run the video clip now?
When a pediatrician hears the word lead, there's nothing more to say that, but we freak out. We freak out when we hear the word lead. Lead is probably the most well-studied neurotoxins, poisons ever known. We've known about what lead has done for centuries.
I'm a pediatrician, which means I literally took an oath to protect children. I did the research that kind of uncovered the rising blood levels in Flint. And when that came out, it was dismissed and denied and attacked by those who were telling us that the water was safe. And when the pediatrician hears the word lead, You can't say anything to reassure us. You just stop what you're doing and you need to learn more, you need to act. Every agency tells us, from the CDC to the American Academy of Pediatrics, that there's no safe level of lead. Lead is a potent, irreversible neurotoxin. It impacts almost every organ system and really every age population. But we worry about the children the most because they're the most developmentally vulnerable, especially children under the age of 6. Once it is in your body and causes that neurotoxicity, it impacts your nervous system, your development. It impacts cognition, which is how we think. So it drops children's IQ levels. It impacts behavior, how kids act, and it can lead to attention problems and behavioral problems, conduct disorders, criminality. So fundamental functionings of a child. Once it is in your bones, it can come back out at future times. If you are, for example, stressed or pregnant or have poor nutrition in the future, it can come back out of your bones and cause that neurotoxicity all over again. There's no good thing about lead. It's not supposed to be in our bodies. But unfortunately, we continue to live with the legacy of lead, be it underneath layers of paint or under soil from gasoline contamination, but also in our drinking water infrastructure. So it is so hard to believe, but we actually have a known neurotoxin delivering the drinking water to much of our nation's infrastructure. It is something we need to act on. It's something that we need to truly respect the science on. We need to move towards primary prevention to make sure that no child is ever exposed to lead.
Thank you, Dee. Next up is last individual for communications this morning, item 669, please.
Request of Sarah Perlman to address council regarding the Braided River campaign and creating a green working waterfront.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Perlman, and I'm here today to say hello on behalf of the Braided River campaign. I would like to start with a thank you for all the work you've been doing to bring our city closer to a climate resilient future. We're appreciative of all that you've accomplished and are looking forward to working with you on bold projects to make Portland the best city it can be. As you are well aware, our city and our state has taken a clear stance on environmental protection and climate justice. We believe that our vision for a green working waterfront will not only further that stance, but establish Portland on the international stage. Our city could be world-renowned as a model of the harmonious integration of industry, environmental protection, and equitable access to natural resources. We are a group of community members, Willamette River advocates, environmental nonprofits, and communities in North and Northwest Portland who believe that thriving economic opportunities can coexist with the protection of natural resources and the environment, especially in the North Reach of the Willamette. We're presenting a community-driven, bold vision to guide the future of Portland's working waterfront that's inclusive of community concerns and priorities, easy to access, protects our natural resources, is diverse in its uses, and mindful of the next generations, as well as the future of the harbor. We've dubbed this vision a green working waterfront. To us, this vision would transform our riverfront communities into productive places where communities have access to jobs, have secure housing proximal to those jobs, and have access to the river for recreation, breaks, and cultural needs. Industry and protection of high livable wages is crucial to the future of our city. At the same time, environmental protection and climate mitigation are critical to communities within and beyond Portland. We believe that these two values, economy and environment, do not have to be in conflict. In a green working waterfront, we would see small and medium manufacturing that does not heavily pollute our air and water, but still provides high-paying work opportunities. And as a quick note, we certainly already have many of these industries and would like to see them flourish with even greater support. We would also see access to the river for workers on break to enjoy, as well as community living nearby. We'd see worker housing in a variety of forms at a variety of price points. We would see trees and bike lanes and green infrastructure and options for multimodal transportation. We would see salmon-friendly docks and resting places, as well as habitat for other wildlife crucial to Portland's ecosystem. We would likely see so much more and hope to hear your visions for what our harbor could look like that reflects our values as a city and as a community. We are looking forward to meeting with Commissioner Maps and staff on October 22nd at our gallery in Linton Community Center to further discuss this vision and all that could be done to further elevate Portland as a model for environmental protection equitable access, and economic success. And I'll take the short time I have left to extend the invitation once again for all of you to visit our gallery and share your thoughts with us. We very much appreciate you taking the time to discuss the future of our city with us. And thanks so much for your time and this opportunity to kind of speak at you. So thank you.
Sarah, thank you. And thank you for being here and sharing a bold vision. I agree with you wholeheartedly that our waterfront has been neglected for far too long. It still serves as a chasm that divides us as opposed to an opportunity to really bring us together, as you say, through activation as well as environmental protection. And I know that there are many efforts going on around the area that you describe, including the Superfund cleanup, the work that's being done by the Human Access Project and others to increase access to the waterfront, as well as the good work we're doing with some of our environmental allies around protecting the environment. But you bringing this together in, I think, a very creative and important, and I would say bold way is really important. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here today and extending that invitation.
Thank you.
Next up is the consent agenda. Keelan, have any items been pulled off of the consent agenda?
We've received no requests.
Please call the roll on the consent agenda.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. We'll go to the time certain agenda, please. Item 670.
Accept report on Portland Main's progress.
Colleagues, the economic health and prosperity of our city is one of the key focal points of my administration. Starting back in 2017, the Council of Economic Advisors, known sometimes as the CEA, has advised us on both economic and workforce development priorities. The CEA members represent community-based organizations, governments, and business, and focus on finding actionable ways to address the growing disparities in our city and create prosperity for all Portlanders. This work led to the Portland Means Progress initiative. It's an initiative that calls on businesses to pay at least $15 an hour and take at least one of the following actions: provide work experience, opportunities for underrepresented youth and young professionals of color, purchase goods and services from local businesses owned by people of color, and engage in cultural change through diversity, equity, and inclusion work. The goal of Portland Means Progress is to connect businesses to proven programs that support these actions so that the private sector can make a difference in using existing resources and programs. It's gratifying to see the overwhelming business response to this initiative and the level of engagement, despite the challenges of the last year and a half and the pandemic's impact on the business community. The challenge of addressing wealth and income disparities and equitably managing growth transcends the charter of any single public or private institution, and therefore it demands a more collaborative approach like Portland Means Progress. I'm grateful to say that this initiative has the participation and leaders of the city's key business organizations, including multicultural chambers, as well as industry groups. It's encouraging to have this level of commitment and support across the Portland business community, and it's exciting to move from talk to action in addressing economic disparities. I look forward to hearing the update from the team on the reporting and findings now that the initiative is 2 years in. I want to thank Kimberly Branham, the Director of Prosper Portland, and the entire Prosper Portland team. I will now turn it over to Yvonne Smoker, who will kick it off today. Good morning.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to share a presentation. And hopefully that comes up for everyone. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and council members. My name is Yvonne Smoker, and I serve as a project manager on the business and industry team in the Economic Development Department. I'm here today to share the 2019 and 2020 Portland Means Progress Impact Report. This report was developed from 2 years of annual reporting data from businesses, as well as reflection on the Portland Means Progress programmatic interventions. Over 2 years, we've developed new programming, grown the initiative to more than 100 businesses, and built an initiative that makes meaningful connections for businesses in Portland to engage in racial equity work. The business and industry team creates access to quality jobs through Prosper Portland's strategic plan goals and equitable wealth creation and access to high quality employment. The team has a key objective of helping traded sector companies become more inclusive and helping inclusive companies grow. We do this through inclusive job creation, business competitiveness, and financial return and local investment. Portland Means Progress is one initiative within the business and industry team programming that supports the goal of creating access to quality jobs. I want to thank our partners in the initiative who have helped to inform and shape Portland Means Progress and are deeply engaged in creating a meaningful program for the businesses. This has been a fundamental piece of our work, having a core group of partners that represent multicultural chambers and large business organizations has helped to shape, shift, and inform the work as thought partners, as opposed to Prosper Portland owning this work alone. Portland Means Progress is a citywide initiative to connect businesses to programming that advances racial equity in Portland. Businesses commit to paying at least $15 an hour across the organization and commit to at least one of the following actions. Host work experiences for underrepresented youth and young professionals of color. Make intentional purchasing decisions by purchasing locally from businesses owned by people of color, and create internal culture change through diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Portland Means Progress was formed by the Mayor's Council of Economic Advisors, who aimed to create an actionable mechanism for the private sector to advance racial equity in the city of Portland. This slide shows the overall timeline for Portland Means Progress from 2017, when the Council of Economic Advisors first convened, through community engagement in 2018, to March 2019, when Portland Means Progress first opened. Since March 2019, we've engaged with Portland Means Progress businesses through programming and continue to build out partnerships and resources based on what we learn. Here are the members of the Mayor's Council of Economic Advisors who shaped Portland Means Progress. The 3 actions of Portland Means Progress were identified based on data and community input. Some key data points: 30,000 local youth are disengaged from school and work in the Portland metro area. 12,000 businesses in the city of Portland are owned by people of color. And 47% of Portlanders between the ages of 15 and 19 identify as people of color. Work experience, intentional purchasing, and culture change were identified by the Council of Economic Advisors as key mechanisms for the private sector to take action to meaningfully impact racial equity outcomes in Portland. Portland Means Progress opened in March 2019 with 50 early adopter businesses. Currently, Portland Means Progress has 127 businesses representing more than 50,000 employees in the city. Here are some of the demographics of the businesses represented in Portland Means Progress. Businesses in Portland Means Progress range in size from 1 employee to 15,000 and are across industries. While the core audience is for-profit businesses, the initiative also includes nonprofits. I'll now hand over to my colleague, Andy, who will speak to some of our learnings in the initiative.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for having us today. My name is Andy Reed. I am also a project manager on Prosper Portland's business and industry team, and I support the Portland Means Progress initiative. I'll now dig into some of the findings of the 2019 and 20 impact report. And for the sake of time, I won't cover everything shared in the impact report, but look forward to sharing high-level findings with you. The full impact report is available on our website, and Yvonne, if you're able to dump that into the chat, that would be fabulous. As a structure, we present the data in the impact report in alignment with results-based accountability guidance. What did we do? How well did we do? And what was the impact from each commitment area? We also share what we learned from the findings and how we'll adjust our interventions based on those findings. So to work experiences, what did we do? First, for work experiences, 340 interns were hosted over 2 years of the initiative. This was largely through our partnership with emerging leaders, work systems, and through internal internship programs at companies. And interestingly, we found that a high cumulative number was driven by a few large companies, but most companies hosted 1 to 2 interns. Work experience, how well did we do? And asking how well did we do, we asked questions around implementation of known best practices for hosting meaningful work experience opportunities. trying to look not just at the number of interns, but the quality of those internships and whether it was a meaningful internship for both the intern and the business. Most companies had formal onboarding processes, but very few offered mentorship programs for employees of color, particularly from smaller businesses. And then work experiences, what was the impact? In asking about impact, the question centered around the experience for interns and companies. Largely, the feedback was positive, with challenges noted in terms of remote engagement in 2020. So I'll move on now to intentional purchasing. Intentional purchasing, what did we do? In total, over the last 2 years of the initiatives, PMP businesses spent nearly $150 million at businesses owned by people of color. Again, we found a few large businesses drove up this cumulative spend, and some small businesses demonstrating a higher proportion of their spend. How well did we do? We also saw an increased implementation of equitable purchasing and procurement practices, which correlated to increased percentages of spend at businesses owned by people of color. Businesses that implemented at least 3 intentional spending policies were more likely to spend higher percentages of total expenditures at businesses owned by people of color. And what was the impact? We saw promising shifts in terms of purchasing changes for early adopters from the first to the second year of the initiative. In 2019, one Mercatus business reported its largest sale ever. It was from a Portland Means Progress business. So last, we'll move to culture change. What did we do around culture change? In 2020 was an important year for culture change implementation, as the Portland Means Progress team spent 2019 building out the framework for this action. One big deliverable, in March of 2020, we rolled out the culture change roadmap, which has since been viewed by more than 14,000 times by people in 90 different countries. And how well did we do on this? First, we found that businesses with more than 100 employees were more likely to implement culture change actions, with smaller businesses struggling with capacity to implement the work. Businesses largely focused on DEI trainings and accountability in their actions. What was the impact? We saw a correlation between businesses that made connections with other Portland Means Progress businesses having a higher implementation of DEI actions. In other words, connection between business mattered. We also found that early adopters were more likely to make these connections and believe that this was due to the in-person networking opportunities that we were able to offer pre-pandemic, and newly joined businesses were only able to join through remote programming thus far. Businesses have shared that the impact of doing this work collectively has been significant for them. To be in a learning environment with other businesses advancing racial equity, to share resources, and to hold each other accountable has helped them to make more meaningful action than they can do alone. We're proud of the results of this effort through Portland Means Progress and thus far, and look forward to continuing the work that we've learned over the last 2 years. So looking forward, where we're going in 21 and 22 for Portland Means Progress, our focus areas are going to be the following. 1, partnering with work experience partners, including a focus on mentorship for employees of color. We're also going to do some technical assistance for businesses on the mechanics of measuring intentional purchasing. This is a hard thing to do when you don't have structures in place and accounting systems and so on. So we have resources we're bringing to businesses to measure how they're going about making their purchasing. We're going to connect to Mercatus businesses. And then finally, our goal of culture change in the coming year is centered around personal connections through direct engagement, community conversation series, and a number of interventions to make connections between racial equity practitioners in the city and with businesses. 91% of the businesses recommitted to Portland Means Progress from 2020 to 2021. Those that largely cited internal challenges to engaging, but one business shared that they hope for more meaningful contact. So we're thinking about what it looks like to do in the near term as we remain in a remote environment. We're excited to maintain momentum on the program, especially given the challenges the pandemic has brought to the Portland business community. We're finding that businesses are hungry for technical assistance and ways to improve their racial equity commitments. As we move forward, we're continuing to think about how to maintain the depth of engagement with the businesses that is also scalable as more businesses commit to the initiative. We're making a call for more businesses to commit to action through Portland Means Progress. And we like to ask you, City Council, to support making this call on business as well. As we shared earlier in the presentation, we're deeply thankful for our project partners with logos shown here. They've been critical and supportive through thought partners, and have been instrumental in the founding and growth of Portland Means Progress. Of course, anytime we present anything like this, it's just never just one person behind the work at the Prosper Portland team. This team includes the core team, Court Morse, Yvonne Smoker, Andrew Gall, and yours truly, a team who helped develop our accountability surveys, Faith Aiken and Robert Smith, Ann Mangan, Lisa Norwood from our communication team, the business industry team who partnered in this work, and of course, our leader, Kimberly Branham, for pushing this work forward for the past few years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hardesty has a question. Commissioner.
First, let me just say thank you very much for that detailed presentation. Thank you for the incredible work that's been done by the team. Your presentation brought up 2 points for me. One, where do we see the future of this program? And as I think about the large employers that are driving the incredible numbers that we're seeing, how do we tap into their resources to actually continue to make this program successful? I guess I'm not quite sure how it's funded, who does the trainings, those kind of pieces. And I could go online and read your in-depth report and find that out. But I'm curious about the future. Where do you see this program 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. That's a great question. We, as a team, are looking at 1 year plan, 3 5-year plans. Where does this want to go? And so I was just on a call this morning with Just Capital. They just came out with a report with FSG and Aspen Institute, and kind of talking about where the movement is going across the country. And so that's something that we're going to keep paying attention to, is who's doing what. The racial equity movements are becoming embedded inside companies on a rate we've never seen before, which is really encouraging. So how do we do this to localize this with small businesses, which is something that Portland Means Progress is doing pretty uniquely. But then second to your question of how do you engage the larger businesses and the business community, that the CEO roundtables, there's movement right now across the country to bring those larger businesses in alignment together to address very specific issues, such as intentional purchasing or buying goods and services in BIPOC communities. So that is something that we're looking at and thinking about, and we'll keep pressing on as we move forward. And then in terms of alignment inside Prosper Portland, one of the things that we're considering is how do we bring all of our programming in the business and industry team into alignment using the lessons learned and the things that we're doing through Portland Means Progress for reporting, for tracking data, for doing accountability. So it is a tool that we believe will have some staying power, or a platform that will allow us to do our other programming better. And then finally, as again, just so grateful that the City Council has allowed us to continue this work after a couple of years with an ongoing general fund request that we had a little bit ago, and having that approved gives us that stability to do this work together. So we're grateful for that as well.
Thank you so much. So are the platforms that you're developing adaptable? Because I'd like to see the city of Portland have the kind of outcomes that Portland Means Progress has when it comes to purchasing and contracting. And so how do we translate what you're doing with the private sector into how we actually become a model in the public sector?
I'd be glad to invite Court Morse on the core team to answer that question if Court is available.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for the question. And hello, everyone. One of the things that I think
can't see you. There's a shadow and we don't see your beautiful face at all.
Well, I'm sorry about the lighting. I don't know if you can see my silhouette, perhaps.
Yes, yeah, we see an outline when you move, but we can't see you. So I just wanted you to know that we can't see you.
My apologies. One thing that I think is exciting about our program is, it's very public. And so all of our resources are online. The Culture Change Roadmap, we continue to get feedback out about. We also are building an intentional purchasing toolkit. So how do you find vendors of color? How do you track that stuff? And then even just with working with other city equity practitioners, you know, we're a community. We like to share resources. And so when one training is going on about accountability, it's available, it's, you know, spread around, and we like to swap those resources. I'm really excited. One thing I wanted to mention is just to really break down the knowledge of how to do this. I love getting in the weeds with companies because a lot of this seems philosophical, and we need to make sure that it's creating real impact for communities of color. So that's really, really exciting as we get to kind of break down the sort of elitist knowledge of this kind of work and really talk to your everyday business owner about how they can make change now. So I'm really excited to share those resources, and they're pretty publicly available.
Thank you, Court. I really appreciate that explanation. And I know our new purchasing procurement director will be really excited about the work that you've done. So I think you've pretty much helped him develop a roadmap into the transformation that he will need to make in his new position. So again, just thank you. Really good work, really good data. I'm a data geek, so you know, when you give me data, I'm a happy woman. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have 3 invited guests today. The first is Francesca Gambetti from Shields Oblitz Johnson, and she's also on the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners. Good morning.
That's right. Good morning. Thank you. Hopefully my lighting's okay.
Yeah, you look great.
Right, as Mayor Wheeler mentioned, I'm a commissioner on Prosper Portland, but I'm speaking today in my capacity as managing director at Shields Oblitz Johnson, or SOJ. SOJ is a small firm with about 20 employees in both Portland and Seattle, and we manage public, private, and nonprofit development projects such as libraries, schools, theaters, transit projects. And SOJ, like a lot of firms in our community, is committed to doubling down on efforts to end systemic racism and build an equitable economy. I think really we've came to a real pivotal moment last year with, you know, the racial justice protests really pushed businesses to focus inward and dig deep, to take meaningful action and to be more intentional in influencing racial equity, really with all our business decisions, right? And so at SOJ, we at that time took, set aside time to really do a lot of research on best practices, do some internal strategizing, talking to other business leaders in our industry, and drafting an equity plan. You know, it's a journey, and the journey's important. It's really important, right? But it can be really daunting, and I think that's where Portland Means Progress has been really immensely valuable. When they opened up the program to the broader community last spring, the timing just couldn't have been better for our firm. So it's really helped us in a number of areas. One is it creates sort of a shared platform for the work that we're all interested in advancing. And the program just really pushed us to formalize our commitments. It helped provide the roadmap and technical assistance that helps us navigate our path to meet those commitments. So it's been really helpful that way. It also just provides, as mentioned a little bit here, about just a lot of resources and training. There's roughly monthly workshops that, you know, as members we get to participate in. It's been particularly powerful in that it creates opportunities for us to connect with other business owners and professionals that are trying to make a change. So we're really learning from each other, from each other's innovations and successes and challenges. It's broadening our perspective on how to approach the work. And just, you know, recognizing that having good intentions just isn't enough, right? We have so much to learn from each other. So those forums really create an opportunity for that. And then I think lastly, they really hold us accountable. So as a small firm, we're pretty limited in our resources. We don't have an HR department. We don't have a ton of resources to put towards this effort. But after serving, you know, at the end of the year, there's a survey that Portland Means Progress issues and asking about our data and trends. And that really pushed us to be a lot more diligent in collecting and tracking data to measure the impacts of our efforts. So it's just helped us on a number of fronts. And I think just want to take this opportunity to recognize Yvonne, Andrea, and Andy and Court. They are doing incredible work. Their passion and commitment to racial equity is palpable in everything they do. And I just want to encourage, if there's any other business leaders out there that might be listening to this today, to join the program. It will be immensely valuable, and it's an incredible resource. So in my mind, a no-brainer for all businesses to be participating in this program.
Thanks, Francesca. Good pitch as well. Thank you for that. Jesse Hyatt, Black American Chamber of Commerce and Hyatt and Associates. Good morning.
Good morning. Greetings, Mayor Wheeler. Greetings, City Council. My name is Jesse Hyatt, and I'm the Executive Director for the Black American Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today to share my own experience with Portland Means Progress. The Black Chamber, alongside many other culturally specific chambers, are thought partners in the PMP initiative. I have appreciated the direction, movement, and impact PMP has had on many businesses. When the member sessions were rolled out last year, several businesses not only attended multiple sessions, but began to be more intentional in their own ecosystems by reaching outside their organizations for support. I was able to watch not just concepts on paper, but directly witnessed where the rubber actually met the road. Another unintended benefit that also came about was PMP staff were able to connect with their thought leaders to distribute tens of thousands of dollars worth of PPE early in the pandemic. This was of great importance. The uplift to the communities that we serve was very impactful and much appreciated. That's really all I have for today. I just wanted to share a little bit of just my own experience and how much we appreciate the direction that it has taken. So take care and stay safe.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And then Lindsey Coy and Company, Curatorial Floral, Portland Means Progress Business. Welcome.
Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. My name is Lindsey Coy, and I own Coy & Co. Curatorial Floral. We're a brick and mortar flower shop on East Burnside and 8th. We're Portland's only sustainably certified florist through the city's Sustainability at Work program. We're also Green Street Stewards. I'm here today to tell you how the Portland Means Progress program has impacted my business and the way I believe it can influence racial equity in the city. I can't tell you any of this without giving you context of who I am and how my business came to be. I grew up being told I could do anything I put my mind to. I put that to the test when I became a homeless student while attending Lincoln High School right here in downtown Portland. I worked full-time while attending classes until I was able to graduate and find stable housing. This achievement solidified my belief that we are all capable of growth and change, so much so that when I began taking critical race theory classes in college, I thought there was something I could do about racial equity too. I was naive and overly optimistic, which led to my eventual disillusionment with the power we all have as individuals to affect systemic change. I moved to community organizing as I watched the cycle of hope and action treat the symptoms, but be largely powerless to remove the disease itself. Then I was lucky enough to work for Terry Courier at Music Millennium as his promotions assistant. I watched in real time what a business founded on a theory of change can do to affect its industry and eventually the world. It inspired me to do the same. I opened my shop with the belief that the more we buy and support local, the more our local individuals and communities can be empowered to make real systemic change. I'm only 25 years old and I've only been open for 3 years, and I've already been able to spend over $380,000 in flowers grown by local farmers alone. My ability to invest in my local agricultural industry empowers our local economy and helps fight climate change. I believe business can be a template for the way you want to see the world. Portland Means Progress specifically has given me the direction, empowered me, and has given me hope that we are all capable of individual systemic change. And if we focus on our own positions of privilege in our own industries. That has influenced so much of what I've done, but very specifically, sorry, I'm trying to find my notes here. I'm really nervous. It specifically inspired me to work directly with industry leaders in my own personal position. One of those areas is the Oregon Flower Growers Association. I've got a lot of meetings coming up where I'm going to be talking to them about the possibility of giving free booths to BIPOC farmers in the area. And I've been meeting with many farmers to see if they'd be interested in the opportunity. It hasn't been finalized yet, but that wouldn't have happened without Portland Means Progress inspiring me and empowering me to take that action. I also, through my own buying practices, have been able to influence some of my growers from, thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. It's inspired them to remove plastic from their products because I won't buy anything wrapped in plastic. So many of my growers now completely wrap in compostable paper, and many of them ship internationally. So that's completely removed plastic from the entire system. So I'm really excited to keep working and keep finding ways to change the industry I'm in. And I couldn't do it without Portland Means Progress. And I'm just so excited to see what happens next.
Thanks, Lindsey. And you are inspiring to all of us. Congratulations. It sounds like you're off to a really amazing start. We're so glad to have you be part of the Portland Means Progress initiative. So thank you for that. Colleagues, unless you have any questions at this point, I will open it up for any public testimony we might have. Keelan, do we have anybody signed up?
This is a report, so nobody signed up.
Oh, good call. Good point. With that then, colleagues, if there are no further questions, Keelan, please call the roll on the report.
Mayor, did you want to ask for a motion to accept the report?
Yeah, good. I'm a little rusty on that point, aren't I? I'll entertain a motion to accept the report, please.
So moved, Mayor.
Commissioner Hardesty moves. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Yeah. Commissioner Ryan seconds. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Again, really incredible work, Prosper Portland. Kimberly Brenham continues to just inspire and amaze us with the kind of deep connections that she is creating that will have really long-term implications and impact. Thank you all. I can't wait to see the city of Portland be able to put the same kind of report out in public. I'm happy to vote aye.
Maps.
I want to thank the mayor for bringing this item forward, and I want to congratulate Prosper Portland on this excellent work. For those reasons, I vote aye.
Rubio.
I want to thank Mayor Wheeler and his staff, along with Prosper Portland, for starting this initiative, and for Yvonne and everyone else who testified. I really love this. I'm a big supporter of each of the thoughtfully strategic components of this initiative.
I appreciated the presentations by Yvonne and Andy, and of course, the guest testimony. I just want to say how clear your vision is, but it's your action and your practices and the implementation that's so impressive. You're agile, you're active. Thank you. Keep being transparent, keep learning from falling down and getting back up. This journey is daunting, as one of the presenters said, but if it was easy, it just might have been done a while ago. Thank you for this refreshing update. Equity means nothing unless it becomes actionable on the ground. Thank you for operationalizing equity. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Portland Means Progress is truly a partnership effort. It's been built on collaboration from the very beginning. I am obviously very pleased to see so many companies, nonprofits, and the public sector build this together, and to reflect on the 2 years of engagement with the businesses to build a more equitable city. The growth of this initiative and the depth of engagement from the businesses committed to Portland Means Progress demonstrates the importance of the private sector's role in advancing racial equity in our city. I am very grateful that Portland Means Progress has the participation and leadership of the city's key business organizations, including multicultural chambers and industry groups. And it is particularly gratifying to see what can be accomplished when a diverse array of voices unite and focuses on a common goal, that goal being shared economic prosperity. It is the business groups and individual organizations taking these actions, and they are the ones embracing the spirit of this initiative that I believe will drive meaningful change. I'll be calling on more businesses in Portland to join us and to make a commitment through Portland Means Progress to take action to advance racial equity. I'm very happy, obviously, to vote aye, and I look forward to continued excellent progress. Thank you, Kimberly Branham, and thank you to the entire Prosper team, to all of the individuals who testified today. Thank you for carving out some time of a busy workday to be here to share the success that you've enjoyed so far. Thank you. We will now go to the regular agenda. The first item on the regular agenda, please, is 677.
Accept bid of $1,873,598 from Faison Construction, Inc. for the Forest Park Entry Project.
I'm pleased to introduce this item with Commissioner Rubio, who is the commissioner in charge for the Portland Parks and Recreation Bureau. This is a procurement report to execute a construction contract to improve public access for pedestrians, buses, and vehicles alike to Portland's amazing Forest Park. It will also provide for enhanced trailhead signage and landscaping. I'll turn this over to Commissioner Rubio to provide some historical background on this project, share briefly about the specific infrastructure improvements that are proposed, and she will introduce our presenters for this item. Commissioner Rubio, take it away.
Mute, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Portland Parks and Rec is striving to provide better access to recreational opportunities for all Portlanders. And by moving forward with the Forest Park Entry Project, Parks delivers on commitments made in the 1995 Forest Park Natural Resources Management Plan to provide better access to Forest Park. The project will address requirements by DEQ for permanent stormwater and erosion control measures for the site to protect the health of Portlanders and our rivers. The project will also include the removal of invasive plants and the planting of pollinator plant species. I'll turn it over to our procurement folks who will provide information about the bidding process and the successful bid.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Kathleen Brenes-Marua, Procurement Manager for Design and Construction Services. With me is Gary Dotka, the Capital Project Manager with Portland Parks and Recreation, and we are here to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with Faison Construction for the Forest Park Entry Project. I'll first provide a brief summary of the procurement process, then Gary has a presentation about the project itself. On May 12, 2021, Council authorized procurement services to solicit the project with an engineer's estimate of $2.5 million. Portland Parks and Recreation rated the project confidence level as moderate. Procurement services issued an invitation to bid, and bids were opened on August 12, 2021, and we received 2 bids. Faison Construction submitted the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $1,873,598. The city's aspirational 20% subcontractor and supplier utilization goal applied. Faison Construction has committed to subcontract 47.26% to firms certified by the state's certification office for business inclusion and diversity, as identified in the report before you. Additionally, Faison Construction is a certified disadvantaged minority business enterprise and are self-performing approximately 46% of the work. Thus, 93% of the project will be delivered by certified contractors. They're subcontracting the remaining 7.34% to non-certified firms. Faison Construction is in full compliance with all city contracting requirements, and I hereby recommend you authorize this project. Unless you have any questions for me, I'll hand it over to Gary. All right, Gary.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm going to share my screen to present my presentation. Hopefully you can see that presentation now. Hello, Mayor Wheeler and members of council. My name is Gary Datka. I am a capital project manager with Portland Parks and Recreation. Again, here with Kathleen from procurement to request council authorization to accept the bid for the amount of $1,873,598.27 from Faison Construction, a certified code bid contractor for construction of the Forest Park Entry Project. The acceptance of this bid for the project today will allow PPR to progress towards providing a new access point to Forest Park, providing increased pollinator habitat, and completion of the DEQ required mitigation for the site, reducing a DEQ imposed fine to only $3,950. In my presentation today, I will share an overview of the project, milestones, and goals for the phase 1 of this project. Forest Park is a 5,200 acre natural area located in Northwest Portland that forms the green backbone of the city of Portland, while providing an unparalleled environmental resource and beauty, wildlife habitat, air and water purification, climate moderation, recreation, and education. The Forest Park Entry Project is situated on a 3.9 acre property located at the intersection of Northwest St. Helens Road, Highway 30, and Northwest Kittredge Avenue. The site is a former industrial site adjacent to Forest Park, and it also is the entrance to Fire Lane 1. Portland Parks and Rec purchased the 3 parcels of industrial land that make up the site in 2005 and 2009. At the time of this purchase, there was residual contamination of PCBs from previous industrial use. PP&R is required by DEQ to incorporate permanent stormwater control measures to prevent the PCBs from leaving the site and traveling to the Willamette River via stormwater. Portland Parks and Rec plan to incorporate these permanent stormwater control features with other public improvements on the site, but lack funding to do so as quickly as hoped. And in coordination with DEQ, BES, and other partners, interim stormwater controls have been put into place on the parcels and are being maintained through PPR's ownership. This project will provide the public with a developed access point to Forest Park by constructing vehicular parking, a trailhead with signage, native and adapted landscaping, and DEQ required permanent stormwater controls, as well as Fire Lane 1 repairs. This is a photo taken from the roadway that illustrates the majority of the site is steeply sloped with a mix of invasive blackberry, native and non-native mixed understory, and several large trees, which will remain through the project. PP&R's Urban Forestry Division, along with a consulting arborist, were valuable resources for assessing the site's trees to be retained for habitat and character. Portland Parks has been working on this project for a long time. An entrance for the Forest Park has been envisioned for this site since the mid-90s. A general vision for the project was laid out in the 1995 Forest Park Natural Resources Management Plan, which is still in effect today. The project will support that management plan's broader vision and goals for the park as a whole. PP&R completed public engagement in 2016 and 17, including 10 stakeholder meetings, 6 project advisory committee meetings, 3 community open house gatherings, and several online surveys to gauge the public's interest and priorities for this project. Due to budget constraints and urgency around the installation of DEQ mandated permanent stormwater controls, this has caused PP&R to phase the project. Following land use review, which concluded in 2020, the project was rescoped to include only phase 1 entry related improvements in order to meet DEQ permanent stormwater control requirements for the site. These permanent controls need to be completed by December 31st of this year, 2021. An additional supplemental environmental project increasing pollinator habitat needs to be completed by August 1st of 2022. The project we are presenting today represents these phase 1 improvements. The project goals for this project are guided by the Forest Park Natural Resources Management Plan. This project supports that plan's broader vision and goals for the park by ensuring the legacy to meet current and future recreational, educational habitat needs, providing recreation services and opportunities for all, particularly in the North Portland and St. John's area, protect and restore natural resources, increasing habitat and protecting water quality, and providing trails and paths, improving access to existing trails throughout Forest Park. You can see on this drawing the extent of phase 1, as well as future phase 2, which would include the Forest Park Visitor Center. Phase 1 provides the public with a developed access point to Forest Park by constructing vehicular parking, trailhead with signage, native and adaptive landscaping, DEQ required public stormwater controls, and Fire Lane 1 repairs. The construction cost estimate for this project, developed by PP&R cost consultants, was $2.5 million. Through this procurement contract, $1,873,598.27 will be awarded to Faison Construction. As Kathleen previously mentioned, 47% of the work will be going to certified subcontractors, with non-certified subcontractor participation at 7.34% and certified prime participation at $814,000 and 45% going to a DBE MBE certified firm. Operations and maintenance requested for this project was budgeted in the fiscal year 21-22 for $47,937, approximately $17,000 of which would be for the parking lot. O&Ms for this project will be carried through existing PPR resources. So today we're requesting council's.
Harry, real quick, on the other slide, just a real quick question. Is the fire lane that's on this map, does that already exist?
Fire lane 1 does exist, yes.
Okay.
Currently it comes down to southeast or southwest St. Helens here, where it's at entry and continues on up.
Okay.
We're reorganizing the way that we get to that path and then making some initial repairs to areas that have significant erosion and water damage that will be helping to direct water away through this project.
Thank you. I was assuming that, but when I was looking at the map, I wanted to make sure I understood it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Again, we're asking for council's authorization to accept the bid of $1,873,598.27 from Faison Construction. With the acceptance of this bid by council, construction is set to begin immediately following contracting, and we anticipate completing permanent stormwater management and erosion controls by December 31st of this year. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have at this time.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Do you want to take the screen down?
I am, yes.
So thank you, Director Brunsmore and Gary, for that presentation. I really have no questions on the presentation itself. I will be supporting this recommendation, but I have to put on the record my disappointment that Faison Construction could not find people of color to subcontract with. I expect when we have a minority firm that's the majority contractor, that we will hold them to the same standards that we are attempting to hold all other prime contractors to. And so I just want to put on the record my disappointment that $1 million are going to subcontractors, but not one is a person of color firm.
Colleagues, any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we adopt the recommendation.
Commissioner Hardesty moves the report. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Commissioner Ryan seconds the report. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, Keelan.
Hardesty.
I can't help but still be in the glow of Prosper Portland's Portland Means Progress report. I believe that we as a city can get there, but we can only get there if all of us are holding everyone to the same standards. This is a good project. It's needed, it's necessary. I vote aye.
Maps.
I want to thank the mayor and Commissioner Rubio for bringing this important project forward. As the commissioner in charge of environmental services, I can attest to the fact that the stormwater controls that will be implemented here will play an important role in protecting our rivers. So I'm glad to see that happen. And those are some of the reasons why I am glad to vote aye.
Rubio.
I want to thank Kathleen and Gary for your presentations, and to Commissioner Hardesty, thank you for raising your concerns. They're so noted. Forest Park is an incredible 5,200 acre natural area in Northwest Portland, and it's the green backbone of our city. And I'm really excited that this entry project is progressing and that future improvements of accessibility for the community, for stormwater improvements and fire lane 1 repairs, which is so important as we continue to do wildfire risk mitigation in partnership with the Fire Bureau. So finally, I just want to thank Parks and Procurement for partnering together on this, and we're working towards upholding our equity and contracting goals. That's a huge priority for me. And I also look forward to hearing about this work as it unfolds in the coming months. So I vote aye.
Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Rubio for bringing this forward. It's pretty exciting. I'm all in. I vote aye.
Wheeler?
I want to take a moment and thank Kathleen and Gary for joining us today to present this report. It was very well structured, and thank you for that. Project works to protect the vitality of Forest Park, and I believe it will make a significant improvement in promoting accessibility so that all Portlanders can enjoy this incredible site for generations to come. I want to thank my colleague, Commissioner Rubio, and your team for your hard work on this. And I certainly want to thank the Parks Bureau and Procurement for your hard work on this as well. I vote aye, and the report is accepted. Next item is 6, 7, 8, please.
Amend contract with North Harris Computer Corporation for maintenance and support services of the Portland Water Bureau and Bureau of Environmental Services Customer Information System for an additional 5 years in the amount of $2,320,230.
This is a non-emergency ordinance. Commissioner Bass.
Mr. Mayor, colleagues, the ordinance before us today is sponsored by the Water Bureau, but really it benefits the Water Bureau, Environmental Services, and the people of Portland. This ordinance asks this council to extend the Water Bureau's current contract with the N. Harris Computer Corporation, which is the vendor we've hired to provide and maintain the software Water and Environmental Services uses to manage our customer information systems. We propose extending this contract for an additional 5 years. This extension will cost approximately $2.3 million. This software is the tool Water and Environmental Services uses to manage nearly 200,000 customer accounts and helps those bureaus collect more than $500 million in revenues for the city each year. Here to tell us more about this mission critical ordinance, we have Director of the Water Bureau, Gabe Salmner, and the Manager of Customer Information Systems for the Water Bureau's Customer Service Group, Becky Anaker. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to Director Salmner and Becky.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and I will let Becky jump right into it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Mapps and Director Salmner. Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor. The Portland Water Bureau provides automated billing and customer support for water, sewer, and stormwater collection services through the Customer Information System, Kayenta, for over 193,000 utility accounts, resulting in $545 million in annual revenue. The city requires continuous support of the Customer Information System for maintenance under the contract to keep the software updated, efficient, and optimally operational. The Water Bureau is requesting an amendment to this contract that extends the term for 5 years and will provide additional funds in the amount of $2.3 million. Technology and data resources are critical assets. The Bureau's ability to deliver services for both Portland Water Bureau and Bureau of Environmental Services, bill and collect for those services, and provide an avenue for both bureaus to effectively communicate with Portlanders is dependent on the Customer Information System. Maintaining and supporting this software asset at the appropriate level is essential to meet the public expectations and achieve organizational goals. The cost associated with the contract amendment will be funded by the Water Bureau and BES, and these costs have been included in each of the Bureau's financial plans and budgets. Continued maintenance and support of the Customer Information System allows the Water Bureau to improve and enhance the application, providing our customers with effective and prompt communication and payment channels that meet their expectation. This contract is a critical part of our ability to gather the funds that support ongoing maintenance, operations, and strengthening of our sewer, stormwater, and water systems so that they can serve our communities for generations to come. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Colleagues, any questions on this item? Keelan, do we have any public testimony?
No one signed up for this item.
All right, very good. Seeing no further questions, this is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. Next item, 679.
Authorize bid solicitation and contracting with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for construction of the Southeast 19th and Southeast Lambert Street Water Mains project at an estimated cost of $2,600,000.
This is also a non-emergency ordinance. Commissioner Maps.
Mr. Mayor, colleagues, the ordinance before us today is sponsored by the Water Bureau. We're asking council to authorize the Water Bureau to seek out the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for a water main repair project located at Southeast 19th and Lambert. This project will cost approximately $2.6 million. Here's why this project is necessary. The Water Bureau owns the water pipes, service pipes, and hydrants at Southeast 19th and Lambert. These are 12-inch cast iron pipes, which are nearly 100 years old. This pipe has been repaired 6 times in the last 10 years, and our inspections show that this pipe is likely to fail again in the near future. Today, Jody Inman, the Chief Engineer for the Water Bureau, is here to tell us more about this important but humble project. Jody, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Maps, and good morning, Mayor and Council members. This is, as Commissioner Maps indicated, that the Water Bureau has a replacement strategy utilizing asset management principles to minimize our risk, to efficiently and effectively utilize resources to maintain affordability, and to ensure reliability and resiliency of the water system. And this project, while humble, is an important component of that strategy. As Commissioner Maps indicated, the Southeast 19th and Lambert project will replace 5,000 lineal feet of 12-inch cast iron pipe. This pipe is known to be brittle, and this age and cohort of pipe can indicate a thinner wall than traditional pipe. Pipe is almost 100 years old and has had multiple repairs, and each one of those repairs has confirmed that the pipe is in poor condition and is prone to break again and should be replaced. In addition, the pipe this project will renew 68 service lines, will install 6 new fire hydrants, improving fire suppression capabilities in the area. And we will also be installing 12 new American with Disability Act curb ramps, forwarding the goal of improved mobility for all persons. The Water Bureau has been engaged with the neighborhood regarding this project. We established a website for the project in 2019 when this was initiated. We've posted on social media, sent multiple mailers and postcards, handed out flyers to businesses and community organizations, as well as attended neighborhood meetings. There have been no significant objections or concerns related to this project. This project follows the city's standard construction procurement process for low bid and includes the city's aspirational goal of 20% utilization, a certification office for business and inclusion and diversity, or co-bid firms. The Water Bureau has been and continues to actively engage with the contracting community and the other city bureaus to provide earlier forecasting, to identify barriers and opportunities, and to challenge contractors to far exceed that COVID utilization, particularly for minority contractors. Are there any questions?
Seeing none, do we have any public testimony on this item?
Yes, we have one person signed up.
All right, name for the record, 3 minutes, please.
Go ahead, Dee.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Dee White. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, Dee.
Thank you. Okay, I see that these pipes that the Water Bureau is replacing, or the mains, were installed in 1927 when lead was widely used in water infrastructure because of its malleability. And I'd just like to ask, is the Water Bureau removing all lead elements in their system? And by that, I mean infrastructure like mains, pigtails, meters, fittings, valves, and service lines that contain this potent neurotoxin. That's all I have to say. And I would like to have the question answered.
Thank you, Dee. I don't know if anybody on staff wants to answer that question or not, or is prepared to.
I will say that the Water Bureau, we are happy that our corrosion improvement project, which is has the goal of reducing leaching of lead, particularly where it is problematic, which is on the premise plumbing, We do not have lead in the Water Bureau system. And the improved corrosion control project will be online in April, helping to reduce the impact of lead from that furnace coming.
Thank you, Jody. Appreciate it. And there's no further testimony. Is there any further questions? If not, seeing none, this is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. Next up, 680.
Direct the Portland Parks and Recreation Director and Chief Procurement Officer to deviate from the social equity and contracting strategy for the purpose of the Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center feasibility study.
Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. The Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center's feasibility study provides the City of Portland, in partnership with the IFCC Community Advisory Committee, the opportunity to explore the possibilities and feasibility of a new Black Cultural Arts Center, and an opportunity to consider social equity in all facets of the delivery and administration and execution of the project. Performing arts and cultural arts centers are highly complex and specialized facilities to design and build. In addition, the long-term operations and programming approaches also present specific business needs. As these facilities present specialized needs and goals, the types of firms that have the working knowledge and understanding of these facilities are typically available at a national level. Our city's commitment to ensuring equity involving pushing and challenging accepted norms to look at new issues in new ways it is needed here. Proposed changes to the RFP template allows a greater diversity of firms to engage in providing city services and supports growth of the DMW ESB SDVBE. I will now turn it over to Robin Johnson-Craig from Parks for her presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio, for your introduction. And thank you, Mayor and City Council, for this opportunity to share this resolution for the Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center. My name is Robin Johnson-Craig. I am a capital project manager with Portland Parks and Recreation, and Kathleen Brennis-Moreau is here with me to present this resolution and answer any questions. I'm here today to present the resolution to direct the Portland Parks and Recreation Director and Chief Procurement Officer to deviate from the social equity and contracting strategy solely for the purpose of the Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center feasibility study. I can provide a little short background on the IFCC, as we call it. The Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center is a community-based arts center located in North Portland at 5340 North Interstate Avenue. IFCC was founded in 1982 by Portland's first Black elected official, Commissioner Charles Jordan, and it has served as the cultural home for the Black community since its inception. The building was originally constructed in 1910 as a fire station and was in use by the Fire Bureau until 1959. The renovated structure now contains a 99-seat theater, an art gallery, and studio for rehearsals or classes. IFCC was a nonprofit run up until the end of 2014. PPNR took over management responsibilities of the facility on January 1, 2015. PPNR currently makes IFCC available for short-term leasing to arts organizations who demonstrate strong alignment with IFCC's current project goals to respect and honor IFCC's history and roots in the Black community, to uphold IFC's original mission to explore, preserve, and celebrate Portland's diversity, and to advance the City of Portland's commitment to racial equity. A little history specifically for how to move forward with this facility. In July 2018, the IFCC Community Advisory Committee was invited by former City Commissioner Amanda Fritz to create a vision for IFCC as a revitalized arts and culture center, as well as a viable, sustainable, and implementable programming and operating model for it. IFCC's CAC members have diligently volunteered their time for the past 3 years and 2 months partnering with PPNR on this effort. In April 2019, the IFCC presented its vision to former Commissioner Fish and Director Long, which received significant positive support by the Commissioner Bureau Director. In November of 2020, Portland voters approved the Parks Local Option Levy, which secured the funding source for the IFCC feasibility study to examine a revitalized Black arts and culture center with a viable, sustainable, and implementable programming and operating model. A few notes about performing arts centers. They're not our normal assets. Performing arts and cultural centers are highly complex and specialized facilities to design and build. And in addition, the long-term operations and programming approaches also present specific specialized business needs, including business modeling, market analysis, and detailed knowledge of arts operations and programming. As these facilities present specialized needs and goals, the types of firms that have the working knowledge and understanding of these facilities are typically available at a national level. As we contract out for these specialized qualifications, we have an open market for teams to respond to this future RFP. And we want to select the most qualified firm as well as a firm that meets our city's equity goals. From an initial broad survey of the state of Oregon co-bid certification commodity codes, there are 33 DMWESB certified firms with the commodity code economics. 12 of these 33 firms are related to the scope or have experience in market research, feasibility studies, and economic development. One of the 33 firms has experience specifically in arts and culture districts, feasibility, and planning. For the scope and knowledge for the design, permitting, construction, and cost estimating of public multicultural facilities, there are approximately 136 certified architecture firms per the state of Oregon certified co-bid inventory. 18 of the 136 firms have commodity code feasibility studies. One firm has the commodity code for performance cultural venue feasibility studies. From this initial broad survey of co-bid certified firms in the state of Oregon with specialized knowledge, there are a few co-bid firms that would be able to provide the needed scope to compete for this work. However, nationally, there's a greater market of expertise that have certification that may be interested in competing for this work. Currently, the procurement request for proposals template approved by procurement and the city attorney's office does not recognize DMWESB SDVBE firms that are not certified by the state of Oregon. This approach by the city of Portland RFP template places out-of-state DMWESB SDVBE firms at a significant disadvantage to compete in the open market for the IFC feasibility study RFP. Procurement and PP&R recognize that the advancement of the project would benefit from a competitive proposal process with the best firms knowledgeable to provide the service for the city, while also advancing the city's equity goals by recognizing DMWESB SDVBE firms certified by other states. The city attorney's office has shared the resolution to deviate from social equity and contracting strategy is acceptable, but recommended procurement to have the change approved by city council. This resolution is asking city council to consider a test case modification of the standard procurement request for proposals template to recognize disadvantaged minority women, emerging small businesses, and service-disabled veteran business enterprises that are not certified by the state of Oregon. After the resolution is approved, hopefully by council, the RFP for the IFCC feasibility study can be released immediately to the public for competitive bidding. I'm happy, Kathleen and I are happy to answer any questions.
Very good, colleagues. Any questions? Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you both so much. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio, for bringing this really important resolution forward. My question is more on the mechanics of the work that's going to be done with this resolution. Are they going to consider whether or not that location is actually an appropriate location, or is everything about the building as it is today and not thinking about what the cultural needs are of model?
I'm sorry, the last part of your statement fell off.
Yeah, so I'm just curious as to if they're limited to just looking at the limited access, the limited options that are currently in IFCC, or if this gives us an opportunity to really think about what would a Black cultural center look like in Oregon. So I'm just wondering if they're limited by what we had in the past, or are we thinking bigger than that?
Absolutely. I'm happy to respond to that. The current RFP scope, as it is framed, will look at a broad city and regional marketplace of what is available in the market, and how a business case best makes sense, and then we'll look at this facility. So that is inconclusive as to what the market study and market analysis may bring forward. And so that may or may not be something that needs to be considered as we move forward. The intent of IFCC, CAC, and the city PPNR, of course, is to look specifically at this facility, given its history and stature in the Black community. And I see that Sue has her hand raised. But again, we're sort of at the mercy or waiting to hear from how the professional consultants respond to looking at a query of what the city offers and where that will lead.
Yeah, thank you for that, Robin. And I look forward to seeing what Sue has to add to that. But I just hope that we are just not narrowing our perspective to that particular location. As wonderful as it was when it was fully operational, parking was horrific. And it had a very limited customer base that you could bring in at any given time. And so if we're looking at what does a Black cultural center look like, that would be a different conversation than how do we make IFCC work as it was originally intended. So I'm really interested in what question it is we're attempting to answer with this contract.
Sue, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so Commissioner Hardesty, I think one piece of information that was not a part of this presentation, but is critical, is so the current center is 7,000 square feet. We have done some financial analysis. The site as it is URM, sound, there are space constraints, there's sound bleed issues. So it is not financially sustainable, and the feasibility study, we actually did a preliminary test fit study with architects who have translated the Community Advisory Committee's vision into a larger expanded space. And so what we're talking about is expansion up to 30,000 square feet. So going from 7,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. So the study is at this time focused on the site, but as redevelopment. And then also understanding that given the history of IFCC within the Black community, it holds a lot of meaning and significance. As to, I think what you're saying, are there other sites or locations to be explored? That there has not been extensive conversation on that, but I think it's important to flesh that out further.
Thank you, Sue. I think that's important to know before we actually send the RFP out, because what I know about the IFCC location is there's not a lot of wiggle room for expansion at that location. So that's one question. And then the other one is, I do not want to set false expectations about we do this study and then what happens, right? I'm always concerned that the city does studies and the community has raised expectations, and there hasn't been a process for the city council to actually engage fully in what we think would be a good direction to move. So I don't want to take anything away from what I know is a really heartfelt effort, but I just want to give a note of caution. I don't want to, we can't make commitments that we A, don't know about, and B, that we're not involved in helping to imagine. So so I will support this effort, but I hope that my questions can be thought about as you're thinking about how you put the RFP together and what it is we're asking the consultants to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Colleagues, any further questions at this point? Commissioner Ryan?
Yes, excuse me. Thank you for that presentation. I just enjoyed also the interaction that just took place. Because of my career background, I love feasibility studies. So my question is perhaps, I just want to be included. in the feasibility study. That will help me understand the process as well. And on that note, is it also a feasibility study to gain capital resources?
It is intended to provide a survey of the possible funding mechanisms that would provide a future path for this asset. It is not a detailed in-depth review of the funding mechanism. So that would be next.
Okay, so it's more preliminary in terms of the infrastructure and the what, and then there'll be another phase about who we will cultivate to support the vision and the what. I'm sure you said all this. I'm just like translating now. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely perfect. Yes, the intent is to also find and to determine. So it's sort of a three-legged stool.
There you go.
We have the asset development, which is part of the feasibility study. Like, what is it? How big is it? How is it built?
Yes.
We have a potential for 60,000 square feet. We have initially identified the need for only 30,000 square feet, but there is a 60,000 square foot possibility. Commissioner Hardesty alluded to the difficulty with parking. So all those sort of physical strengths are part of the asset development part of the stool. And then we have the operations and programming, the funding piece. How do we operate it? How do we fund the ongoing nature of it? And then also, how do we maintain it and who runs it? And so all those development scenarios, and each of those are iterative and inform each leg of the stool. So sorry for all my finger pointing.
No, it actually was really helpful. Yeah, I'm a visual person. So I also just think it's great timing to move on this with Commissioner Rubio's leadership in both parks and in the arts. So I'm excited. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Keelan, do we have anybody signed up to testify on the resolution?
No one is signed up.
Very good. I see no further questions. Please call the roll.
Hardesty,
I am really excited about what comes out of this feasibility study. And I hope we don't limit our possibilities. I think we have to just see what's possible with creating this cultural opportunity. I'm very happy to vote aye.
Maps,
I want to thank Commissioner Rubio for bringing this item forward. I'm excited to see this important project evolve and move forward. And for those reasons, I vote aye.
Rubio.
I want to thank my colleagues for the great conversation. I know that Parks is taking notes to make sure that we make sure to address your questions and concerns in the next steps of this project. I also just want to say, that the activation of these kinds of spaces and the progress of this redevelopment project are very high priorities for me. And my office, along with Parks, will make sure that the work is very community focused and based on what we need today. I want to thank you again to Robin in Parks and Kathleen in Procurement for partnering together to find creative solutions to ensure that we are walking the talk when it comes to equity and contracting. And thank you to the IFCC Community Advisory Committee for their continued partnership and good work, and for pushing to make sure that we also walk the talk there as well. And then I also want to express my gratitude to Parks, Arts, Culture, and Special Events Manager, Sue Pack. I'm not only the Parks Commissioner, but also the Arts and Culture Commissioner. And my team and I have appreciated working with Sue over the past 9 months across these two assignments. So very happy that we're taking these next important steps. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Rubio, for bringing this to us. Robin, that was a great conversation. I look forward to being engaged in this exciting endeavor. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Looks great. I vote aye. The resolution is adopted. Colleagues, I'd propose we take a 5-minute break before we take up the 4/5 item. We will reconvene at 11:20. We are in recess.
Recording stop.
All right, we're back in session. I don't know if recording needs to start again.
Recording in progress.
All right, very good. We will now take up the 4/5 item, Keelan 680-1.
Declare City Council support for reproductive health care rights and opposition to the state of Texas ban on abortion, and direct the City Budget Office to include $200,000 in general fund unrestricted contingency resources in the mayor's fall supplemental budget ordinance to be allocated to organizations that deliver programs and services related to reproductive health care.
Thank you, Keelan. Today, colleagues, we take up this resolution to denounce Texas Senate Bill 8 and Texas politicians who voted to inflict disproportionate harm to women, communities of color, gender, non-binary individuals, poor working families, and immigrant communities in the state of Texas. We denounce the decision by the Supreme Court to not intervene, ignoring nearly 50 years of legal precedent protecting reproductive rights. I've heard some say that this is not an issue that should come before the Portland City Council. And I've heard some suggest that this issue has no bearing on our local community. After all, this is about something happening far away in Texas. I want to be clear. I could not disagree more. If this Texas law restricting the rights of women is allowed to stand, it will spread to other states, and it will jeopardize Roe v. Wade, and it will impact our constituents here in the city of Portland. Therefore, I see a duty to lead on this issue, just as we have on global climate action, immigration, racial justice, and other national and international issues that ultimately impact us right here in Portland in significant ways. On September 3rd, my colleagues and I agreed that we should lead on this issue. We explored ways to leverage our economic footprint in the state of Texas via a city employee travel ban and a ban on future procurement contracts until the law in Texas was reversed or overturned. My colleagues and I also reached out to major reproductive health care providers and advocates who affirmed our urge to fight these unconstitutional laws. While I still believe that our plan would have been an appropriate and strong course of action to take, over the Labor Day weekend, we also heard from other service providers and other groups who represent women's rights. They disagreed with some elements of our strategy, and they suggested alternatives. As a white man, I recognize the importance of listening to and being guided by those who do the work and live the work on the ground. These stakeholders expressed concern that banning procurement and travel might be punitive to Texans who are in fact the most affected by this new legislation. I believe it was very important that this city council took the time to listen. They proposed alternative means of action, and we revised our approach to ensure that we are best supporting those in need of reproductive care. I'd like to thank these groups, many of whom are here today to speak, for their time, their expertise, and their valuable feedback. Today, we stand united on a course of action. In closing, as I mentioned before, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, no state will be immune to the devastating effects that will undoubtedly follow. Our nation's history has proven that people will seek the reproductive care they need, regardless of legal, financial, or geographic barriers. Out of desperation, people will put their health and their safety at risk, attempting self-abortion or seeking assistance from those who are unlicensed or untrained. Reproductive care providers will continue to be targeted for recognizing the rights and dignity of people where the Texas legislature does not. Your choice, be it as an individual, an organization, a city, or a state, to remain silent on this issue will not go unnoticed or be without impact. Portland will continue to be a beacon for abortion access and reproductive freedom. Portland will continue to support an individual's right to choose what's best for their health and future with dignity and with economic security. Portland will continue to lead with compassion and be true co-conspirators in the fight for reproductive rights. I'm proud to stand here today alongside my colleagues in opposition to these archaic and oppressive laws that ultimately could have a direct impact on our constituents here in Portland. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Commissioner Rubio, to provide her remarks. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. And first off, I want to deeply appreciate Mayor Wheeler for initially raising the need for us to act on our values and respond with urgency to Texas State Senate Bill 8, which is harmful to so many communities in Texas. We're outraged and we're angry, and we're tired of the nonstop attempts by some lawmakers to control women's bodies and women's choices. This policy takes away choice in one's most vulnerable moments and is beyond devastating for so many individuals, especially low income and Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and people of color in Texas. In preparing for today, we've been working with reproductive rights advocates in Portland, including NARAL Pro-Choice Oregon, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon, and Northwest Abortion Access Fund, who strongly urged us to refine a more patient-centric response as the most impactful approach that we can take. I also want to thank my colleagues for engaging on this in a robust way, and also to all of those who have been working tirelessly on the ground in Texas and in Oregon and in so many other states to ensure that everyone in this country receives the full reproductive freedoms they deserve.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Rubio. I also want to start by really thanking the mayor. The very first work call that I took when I came back from vacation was from Mayor Wheeler, who wanted to move forward this very thoughtful and significant resolution. I also said right away, yes, I'm on board. But I really want to highlight the fact that the mayor took the time and took the hits for taking the time to talk to the advocates on the ground, to talk to the people most impacted by this Senate Bill 8 that the Texas Senate passed. Many people would have just said, I'm on this path, I'm moving, I'm going, and, you know, be damned with everybody else that's not on board. And let me say, I was a little prickly that we were changing course at the end. But I want to publicly say give my undue respect and appreciation for Mayor Wheeler's leadership. Sometimes leadership means you step back and you reassess whether or not you are taking the right course of action. Sometimes a leader has to actually not listen to their own instincts, but listen to the people most impacted. I just want to take this moment to say thank you, Mayor Wheeler, for your leadership on this really critical issue. I will have a more formal statement later, but I just wanted to start just with appreciating. I give you a lot of grief, and I wanted to today acknowledge that your leadership in this situation has been superb. And regardless of what editorial boards say, this is absolutely the right decision for this council to take today. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, and thank you, Commissioner Rubio, as well. I appreciate that very much. With that, we'll turn this over to Robert Taylor, Chief Legal Counsel for the City of Portland. You have a brief introduction, I believe. Robert.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm Robert Taylor. I'm the Portland City Attorney. Before we hear from the other testimony today, let me just outline the 6 specific things that this resolution does. First, the City Council is expressing its unwavering support for the constitutional right of a person to make their own reproductive health care decisions. Second, the Portland City Council is expressing its steadfast opposition to restrictive state laws, such as Texas's law, that are hostile to the right to make individual choices about reproductive health care. Third, this resolution directs the City Budget Office to include $200,000 in general fund unrestricted contingency resources in the mayor's fall supplemental budget to be allocated to one or more organizations that deliver programs and services related to reproductive health care. Fourth, the City Council will be sending a letter to the Oregon Congressional Delegation urging them to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. Fifth, the Council, by this resolution, will send a letter to the Biden administration supporting the United States Department of Justice's challenge to the Texas law. And finally, this resolution directs my office to participate as an amicus challenging the Texas law in the most effective and strategically valuable way possible.
Thank you, Robert. We have 3 individuals, I believe.
Mr. Mayor, I have some questions.
I'm sorry.
Robert.
Yeah, Commissioner Mapps, I apologize. Go ahead, please.
No problem at all. Robert, thank you so much for that overview. I have a question about item number 3 in your list of things contained in this ordinance, that $200,000. Can you explain to us where that $200,000 came from and what it would be spent on?
Thank you, Commissioner. I believe that figure was discussed among council staff who were consulted on drafting the resolution. I think of this in 3 steps as far as how that money would be allocated. The first is with this resolution, it gives a direction to the budget office to include this money in the mayor's fall supplemental budget ordinance. That will come to council in October. The second step is the supplemental budget ordinance would be approved. And then the third step is that grant agreements would be written and approved by council. And it's those grant agreements that would identify the organizations that would be receiving the money. So that's
Robert. If I could add to your excellent answer to that question, Commissioner Mapps, I think, is also looking for the specific way in which those resources would be deployed. This resulted from conversations we had with some of the service providers who are in fact invited testimony, and they'll probably choose to elaborate as well. But in general, what we've seen in the past is when restrictions are passed in other states, people in fact leave their state and they go to other communities that are known to be more friendly towards their needs. And that, of course, puts additional cost burdens on local service providers. And so that is part of the focus of what we're trying to do with the $200,000 here, is acknowledge that our local service providers are going to have an increase in business, and they have policies not to turn people away. And so that is part of what's under discussion.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, if I understand you correctly, what we anticipate is women in Texas who are pregnant and no longer able to access reproductive services are going to travel to Oregon, which will place a burden on our local reproductive healthcare services. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, and I would also like to defer to the people who actually run these services who will testify this morning. But that's correct, and we've seen that in the past as well, that when there is a restriction passed, the other states that are known to be more open-minded and friendly towards women's reproductive rights tend to get more people coming in to have safe and legal procedures.
Mr. Mayor, this strikes me as being an unusual expenditure for the city of Portland. Do we have anyone from the budget's office who could help me place the dollar allocation into some context?
Yeah, sure. And while that's possible, and while we're waiting to see if there's anybody from the budget office, I will remind my colleagues that in the past, we have also allocated funds towards legal support for new immigrants to our community to help them meander the citizenship requirements and other services that are required. As a sanctuary city, we actually allocated money towards the support of individuals that we knew would come to Portland as a sanctuary city. So this type of activity is not entirely unprecedented.
Okay, do we have anyone?
I don't know if we have somebody from the budget office. Let me check the list here. My eyes are getting older by the minute. I do not see anybody specifically, but maybe we can get somebody on the horn pretty quickly.
Sure, I would appreciate that. And what would help me is I traditionally do not think of the city of Portland as being a funder for healthcare services. In our form of government, historically, healthcare services are funded by the county or the state. And I just haven't seen us go down this lane before. So I'm trying to see if there's any precedent that for what is on the table. And I'm also curious to see what sort of precedent this would create.
Yeah, that's a fair question. And I have a staff member trying to get somebody from the budget office. But I will also remind my colleagues that we in last year's budget supported funding for both substance abuse treatment directly through a service provider, because we saw that as an important intersect with the homeless problem that we're struggling with here in our community. And we have also supported direct investment in mental health services. And in fact, we had a work session on that just this week. So while I agree historically and traditionally, the city of Portland does not have as its primary mission support for health services, I believe that in this case, as we have made exceptions around mental health and substance abuse, I think this is a justifiable path for the city council to consider, given the direct impact this will have on our constituents. I see Commissioner Hardesty. I don't know if you want to talk on this particular issue, but I'd like to finish with Commissioner Mapps.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, okay. I just wanted to also mention, you may remember 3 years ago, we directed the city attorneys to work with states who are facing severe abortion restrictions. That day, we as a council unanimously voted to be really clear that we as a council will continue to show up and protect people's right to choose whether or not to be a parent and when they want to be a parent. When we did that last year, 3 years ago, it was with intentionality, knowing that Tracy Reese, who was our city attorney at that time, was already overworked, but we invested more dollars into the city attorney's office so that she would be able to do that really important work. This is not inconsistent with where the city has been traditionally when it comes to taking a strong stance around civil rights and equality. And what I know personally is that when these restrictions are in place, the people hurt first and most are people of color, especially Black people and low-income people. You don't have to look any further than the lines in Texas and Georgia on voting day to know that we still live in two very unequal societies in the United States. And this is one small thing. Well, what we do today fundamentally change the mindset of Texas legislators? Probably not. But it will do is send a very strong message to the people of Texas that we don't abandon them just because, unfortunately, they have the leadership that they have. And so I just wanted to remind us that this is not the first time we as a council have collectively, with intention, invested our dollars where our mouth is. I can tell you that it's easy to say we're pro-choice, but it's a whole lot harder for some people to actually put their money where their mouth is. So I hope that's helpful because, of course, you weren't here when that happened, but I wanted to give you that context as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Commissioner Maps,
if I may,
Yeah,
first I want to thank Commissioner Hardesty for that history and context. I wasn't on council when those decisions were made, but I do support those decisions. I see colleagues, Mr. Mayor, the challenge before us, I think today is an unjust law in the state of Texas. And I think unjust laws require either legislative or judicial responses. I think our goal here should not be just a symbolic pushback. I think that we should lean into the elements of this ordinance which actually launch a meaningful legal and policy challenge to the unjust anti-abortion law in Texas. That's why when we were negotiating this, I asked my colleagues to add the language to this ordinance, which number one, directed us to send a letter to our congressional delegation, urging them to write Roe versus Wade into law, which is one way to throw this law into the dustbin of history. And that's also why I directed our added language to this ordinance, which directed the city attorney's office to write an amicus brief, which we can use to challenge this law for the Supreme Court. I think leaning into these legislative and policy solutions is the way to actually get meaningful results for the women of Texas. I, on the other hand, frankly, am genuinely mystified by what we're trying to accomplish with this $200,000 allocation, which is one of the reasons why I look forward to hearing from someone from the budget office.
Thank you, Commissioner Maps. And I do see Jessica, Director Kennard is on the line, and I'll let you state the question again, just because she may not have heard the question, Commissioner Maps. And then Robert Taylor, can you also, after that, I'd like you to summarize the resolution that the council passed previously. I know we've discussed it, and that might be helpful context as well. Welcome, Director Kennard. Thank you for joining us. Commissioner Maps had a question.
Director Kennard, are you there? I don't see you on my screen,
Yes.
but I trust you're there. And I authentically apologize for grabbing you out of whatever you were doing. As you know, we're looking at this Texas ordinance. I just had some questions about the $200,000 allocation. Can you tell me what we're going to spend that on?
So I believe it's for reproductive health organizations. I believe that is to be determined. The precise organizations that will be recipients of the funding and the activities that it will be supported, that it will support, will be determined. One of the reasons why the language around the fall bump is in there is because council will need to approve the specific allocation details in order for the grant agreements to be finalized anyways. And so the money is not going to be able to get out the door today. We need to do the additional work of actually defining which organizations are going to receive funding and for what services, and council will approve that. And so the timing works out such that the funding can be allocated and we can plan for the funding to be allocated while those conversations are being had. And when we pass the fall bump in a few weeks' time, hopefully we'll be able to do all of that at once.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. The other question I have is, it strikes me as being highly unusual for the city of Portland to fund reproductive services. And let me be clear, I support reproductive services, but it's my understanding that the division of responsibility between the city of Portland, Multnomah County, and the state is generally that the state and Multnomah County provide and fund reproductive services. Does the city of Portland have any significant history of funding reproductive services?
So I don't know that I can answer for the entire history of the city of Portland. I have been with the city of Portland for about 6 years. I do know that we do, it's certainly not something that falls within the scope of many of our core services. However, we do have a handful of special appropriations that council chooses to allocate every year for items and priority areas that don't fall within the core service of a lot of our bureaus. And so this would likely fall into the category of a special appropriation.
So in your 6 years as budget director, you haven't seen the city of Portland make a significant $200,000-ish allocation for the purpose of reproductive services. Is that correct?
That's correct. But I have seen allocations for mental health services through special appropriations and similar work.
Were those allocations for mental health services spent in the city of Portland, or were they spent outside the city or even outside the state?
I would have to get back to you on that. I would have to look into the actual allocations and see where they were allocated.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate your answers and your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good and good dialogue and back and forth. And as Director Kennard said, obviously, as part of the fall bump process, this still has to go through all the usual channels and traps, and it most certainly will. If I could state a preference, I'd like this to go towards the Northwest Abortion Access Fund, and they would then in turn allocate it towards underserved populations and towards ways to reduce barriers to access to healthcare. But obviously, as part of the fall bump process, that would be part of the council deliberations going forward. Robert, did you have a chance to look up the prior resolution?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. It was Resolution 37443 adopted by Council on July 10th, 2019. And it was in response to some other restrictive state laws in Ohio and Alabama. And as Commissioner Hardesty mentioned, it expressed the city's condemnation of any attempt to restrict the right to reproductive health care. And it also directed the city attorney's office to monitor any lawsuits in any other states and join as an amicus in those states whenever it was most effective and strategically valuable. And that is something we have been doing and we continue to do. And the resolution before council today, as Commissioner Mapps noted, would further direct us to continue that work with a particular focus on this Texas bill.
Thank you. You're particularly good at
I have a question for Robert.
You bet.
Robert, thank you for that history. In your outline of the contents of this ordinance before us today, you said it contains 6 items. Can you list the items here which are consistent with the ordinance that passed, that council passed 3 years ago?
Yes, I would say it's again, we're repeating our support for reproductive health care, we're repeating council's condemnation of restrictive state laws. And then I think the third that would be consistent is directing the city attorney's office to continue the amicus work. I think the 3 things that are in addition that we're doing is the funding question, and then the direction of council to send a letter supporting the Biden administration's challenge to the law, and the direction to council to send a letter supporting legislation in Congress.
Thank you, Robert.
There we go. Thank you very much. Colleagues, as promised, we have some invited testimony, 3 individuals first up, and we really appreciate their participation today. Beth Weil, who is a board member of the Northwest Abortion Access Fund and program coordinator with We Testify. Good morning. Thanks for being here. You're muted, I think, Beth.
Thank you.
There you are.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Hardesty. It's good to see you both again. Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Ryan, and Commissioner Mapps. It's nice to finally meet you. Thank you for inviting us here today. My name is Beth Weil, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Northwest Abortion Access Fund. For those of you who may be less familiar, the Northwest Abortion Access Fund is your local abortion fund. We serve Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Idaho. Our mission is to fund abortion and break down barriers to abortion access for people seeking care in the Northwest. We help people pay for their procedures, help people get to and from the clinic. We make sure people traveling for care have a safe place to stay, groceries, gas, childcare. If they need it, we'll cover it. Trained compassionate volunteer advocates run our toll-free hotline, and we move over $350,000 each year to people in our region or those traveling to our region who are facing logistical barriers to accessing abortion. We are a 501c3 nonprofit and a member of the National Network of Abortion Funds, a membership organization of over 70 funds across the U.S. Abortion funds grew out of the need to step in where elected officials have failed, with policies that ban abortion coverage or don't provide adequate funding for this care. The last time I testified to the City Council was in 2019, shortly after the appointment of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. I spoke in support of the resolution to file amicus briefs in opposition to state abortion bans, shared my abortion story, and made a request for City to consider investing in abortion funds. That year, our abortion fund colleagues in New York City had successfully worked with their local government to make a historic investment of $250,000 in their state's abortion fund. And shortly after that, Austin, Texas made a similar investment in their local abortion fund. What I said in my testimony then still rings true today. The fight to protect abortion access is more important than ever. We cannot do this work without you. I am grateful for City Council recognizing this and for our partners, Pro-Choice Oregon, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon, All Above All, and the National Institute of Reproductive Health for recognizing that allocating municipal funding to local abortion funds is one of the most important and impactful ways that a city can support abortion access. I know what it's like to have to travel for healthcare and not to be able to sleep in my own bed after an abortion because of political interference. The Northwest Abortion Access Fund was critical for me to be able to access my abortion, which costs over $10,000 after being lied to and delayed by anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers. I had to fly over 1,000 miles to an abortion provider who provided me care, not unlike what Texans are facing now. By investing in the Northwest Abortion Access Fund, the City of Portland is fighting back against abortion bans and supporting people seeking their health care. Following the Texas abortion ban, our calls from Texas have increased by 400%. We anticipate the number will climb and we will have more callers throughout the country as states across the nation seek to enact bans that copy Texas, and the Supreme Court overturns past precedents establishing the constitutional right to an abortion. The situation is an emergency, and while we're in the most pro-choice state in the country, it is imperative that we lead at all levels of government to expand access to abortion care before more bans are enacted. Each of us should be able to live, work, and make decisions about our future with dignity and respect. Someone who can make decisions about their own health care, including whether to become a parent, has more control over their economic security. We need policies that help put people on equal economic footing. And with this resolution, we're reimagining a society where everyone is able to receive the abortion care they need and create their families without barriers, fear, or interference from others. A society that leads with compassion and puts our families' health, safety, and real life needs first. The resolution cannot pass soon enough. For the aforementioned reasons, I urge you to support this critical resolution to fund abortion access here in Portland and across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. We appreciate it. And thank you for joining us while you're on the road too. Thank you. Next up, we have Janine Morales. She's the Deputy Director of NARAL Pro-Choice Oregon. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, and good morning, Commissioner Hardesty and Rubio, Ryan, and Maps. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. My name is Janine Morales, and I am the Deputy Director at NARAL Pro-Choice Oregon. I'm extremely honored to stand in front of my city leaders who want to show our nation that what it means to lead with compassion and how to ensure everyone in our community can feel safe, well-informed, and supported when it comes to accessing abortion. Oregon has been progressive in policy, leading the nation with advances in health equity, including the Reproductive Health Equity Act, passed in 2017, that expanded access to highly impacted communities. Like many, I'm outraged by the abuse of power demonstrated by Texas politicians. And I'm so proud to see our leaders in Portland choose to lead with actions that will have a real impact, centered on the people directly harmed by these recent events. Texas Senate Bill 8 will have the most harmful impacts on Black, Brown, LGBTQ+, young people, people who live in rural communities, immigrants, and low-wage individuals, people whose voices are often silenced or ignored by their elected officials. Today, Portland leaders have the opportunity to set a new high bar for the rest of our nation. Thank you for demonstrating how local leaders can be champions for their residents and communities. Thank you for seeing, listening to, and for caring, creating space for people who have had or who will have abortions. And thank you for centering their needs in your policy decisions. Shortly after the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Pro-Choice Oregon began reaching out to our local reproductive partners from Northwest Abortion Access Fund, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon, and Forward Together, as well as our national partners, NIRH, and All Above All, to discuss how we can help build resilient communities prepared for the very real possibilities of Roe being turned over. We know that Oregon leaders would be ready to hold the torch and create sanctuary for people who may have to travel to our state to receive essential health care. This is especially important in Eastern Oregon, has residents who access abortion care across the border in Idaho. Anti-abortion politicians in Idaho have already passed a trigger ban to criminalize abortion for when Roe falls, and already have shown an interest in passing a ban like Texas Senate Bill 8. So unfortunately, Senate Bill 8 is just the beginning. We expect an onslaught of attempts to remove autonomy from anyone seeking an abortion at all levels of government. Leaders who are willing to put a bounty on a person just because they may not be ready to start a family. We are also still in a pandemic, and many people from impacted communities are dealing with economic hardship from unemployment, houselessness, lack of insurance, loss of a family or support system due to COVID, and other barriers that can make forcing an unwanted pregnancy have detrimental mental health effects later. This is why we are looking to you to model being leaders who are ready to take ownership and lead this resistance. We have the opportunity to put Portland leaders on the national map. And as partners, Pro-Choice Oregon is ready to help other cities, counties, state legislators follow up with this powerful example. This is exactly how we should be showing up, by providing municipal funds to the Northwest Abortion Access Fund. We can not only help our residents who need support and care, but to those who come to our state with nowhere else to go, helping them remain safe while supporting clinics in our local economy. We have amazing providers who will give compassionate care, and you will help us meet the unmet resources for local residents who still cannot access the care they need. In conclusion, thank you for making this moment possible. The world is looking at Portland. I want to empower you all to continue to lead by putting our people first, by voting yes on today's resolution to provide support to abortion funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine, and thanks for your leadership. And thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, Ann Doe, the Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon. Welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners Hardesty, Rubio, Ryan, and Maps. For the record, my name is Ann Doe, and I am the Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon, and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. I am here in strong support of the city's resolution to take meaningful and forward-thinking action in opposition to the state of Texas's extreme abortion ban, which the Supreme Court allowed to go into effect earlier this month, despite its blatant unconstitutionality and the immense public opposition and outrage. Senate Bill 8 was drafted with incredible, purposeful cruelty and designed for maximum harm. The law not only bans abortion after 6 weeks, before many even know they are pregnant, it deputizes private individuals to sue anyone who performs the procedure or aids and abets, effectively placing a $10,000 bounty on abortion providers and/or people who help people get care. Abortion bans are inherently racist, classist, ableist, and misogynistic. Due to structural racism and inequities, abortion bans like Texas's law disproportionately harm Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, LGBTQ+ people, people with low incomes, and those living in rural areas. By allowing private individuals to police and profit from infringing upon other people's bodily autonomy, this law not only incentivizes abortion hunters, it sets a dangerous precedent that could lead other states down a dark path. Each year, Planned Parenthood health centers serve over 60,000 Oregonians. Planned Parenthood of Columbia-Willamette operates 2 Portland health centers, and throughout the entire pandemic, they never closed their doors or interrupted the provision of essential health services like abortion care. In 2020, in a year of quarantine and lockdown, those Portland health centers had 23,798 visits, including cancer and STI screenings, family planning, gender-affirming care, and abortion. These health centers have worked long and hard to expand access to care through innovations like telemedication abortions. Now, our health centers are stepping up and preparing to care for more patients who have been and will be forced to leave their hostile states to receive the health care they need. Yet, even today, many patients who come through our clinic doors face incredible obstacles and barriers to accessing abortion care, including those who cannot afford the procedure because their federal health insurance plan won't cover it, those who receive health care via the Indian Health Services, those who have to travel long distances, like Beth, due to a lack of providers in rural communities, and those whose healthcare providers are religiously affiliated. It often falls on the incredible work of abortion funds, such as the Northwest Abortion Access Fund, to connect patients with critical support and funds so they can access the care they need. NWAF works with patients to pay for their travel, lodging, childcare, and medical expenses. There are huge gaps and limitations of the mere legality. Roe is only the floor, it's not the ceiling. And NWAF looks at these things every day as they navigate calls with individuals to figure out how to connect them to abortion care. They field requests from around the country, but also allocate a significant number of grants to people living in Portland for whom abortion care would be out of reach if not for their help. I cannot underscore enough how significant, both in symbol and in impact, it is that the city has included within this resolution an investment into building a stronger infrastructure to support abortion patients. This resolution's $200,000 will bolster the existing abortion network through direct support of abortion access funds who work tirelessly to connect abortion patients with the care they need. SB 8 comes forward as the Supreme Court is slated to hear the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case, a 15-week abortion ban out of Mississippi that could gut Roe versus Wade. It's not hyperbole to say that these 2 laws and cases could radically alter abortion access and rights for years to come. This full-scale assault on reproductive rights and bodily autonomy is a culmination of decades-long nationally coordinated efforts to ban abortion. In this moment, their response must be innovative, visionary, and coordinated. The investment of $200,000 is a forward-looking leadership that anticipates that Texas is the beginning, not the end. As more statewide abortion bans are posed to be adopted in other states, and as we anticipate trigger laws like the one in Idaho could go into effect, the city of Portland is strategically and wisely investing in shoring up the abortion network and infrastructure so we can definitely handle the influx of people who will need assistance. Portland will be the 3rd city across the country in recent years to grant municipal resources for abortion care and support, following New York City and Austin, Texas. These cities recognize what has become abundantly clear. We can no longer rely on a court system now packed by Trump-nominated judges who are both anti-sexual and reproductive health and prone to flouting precedent to be the backstop to extreme state legislatures bent on banning abortion and stripping individuals of their health care and power over their bodies. We must take proactive action in creative ways, including putting forward budgets that reflect our values. It is incumbent upon us. An attack on one is an attack on all. We appreciate Portland City Council's commitment to acting in the face of these unprecedented attacks on healthcare and bodily autonomy. We applaud the City Council for hearing feedback from the reproductive rights and reproductive justice advocates on the ground in Texas who have communicated that the most meaningful support at this time is investing money directly into helping the Texans who have been most impacted by this abortion ban. Oregon and Portland already serve as a critical access point for people from out of state, including neighboring Idaho and beyond. Today, Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon proudly supports the City Council's resolution in response to Texas's egregious law. Portland is compassionately responding to the cruelty of the Texas abortion ban by funding the Northwest Abortion Access Fund, whose mutual aid and support will be critical to Texans seeking care outside of their hostile state, to Portlanders who struggle to access care due to economic insecurity, and to many others throughout the Pacific Northwest whose access to care hangs by a thread. We urge your support of this resolution.
Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Keelan, my understanding is we probably, given that this is a 4/5 item, I'm guessing we probably don't have people signed up for public testimony, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, we actually opened testimony for people to sign up, but no one signed up.
Very good. Colleagues, then any further discussion before we call the roll on this item or any further questions? Commissioner Mapps.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have some comments which will ultimately lead to an amendment or two, which I will forward. First, I want to express my appreciation for the powerful testimony that we just received. Like every member of council and the public testimony we received, I strongly oppose Texas's new anti-abortion law. And here's why. First, I support the right of women to make their own decisions about the bodies they live in. Second, I believe the people of these United States should have easy access to high quality, affordable health care, and those services should include reproductive care. Third, Texas's anti-abortion law is clearly out of step with the last 50 years of constitutional law. Fourth, Texas's law makes no exception for rape or incest. In sum, I oppose Texas's anti-abortion law because it violates the Constitution and human dignity. And that's why I think it's important that this council launch a meaningful campaign designed to overturn Texas's anti-abortion law. Now, let me be clear about the stakes here. Texas's anti-abortion law represents an existential threat to reproductive rights in these United States, including here in Oregon. Here is what I expect will happen over the coming months. A legal challenge will be launched against the Texas law. Eventually, that court case will find itself in front of the Supreme Court, which is kind of like having Roe versus Wade before our current Supreme Court. Frankly, given the current composition of this court, it is entirely possible that the Supreme Court will open the door to allowing state legislatures to ban abortions, even here in Oregon. That's why I think it's important for this council to launch a meaningful legislative and legal challenge to Texas's anti-abortion law. Now, the only way to overturn Texas's anti-abortion law is to convince a court to overturn this law or to convince Congress to pass a law which writes Roe versus Wade into law. That's why I added language to this ordinance, which commits this council to sending a letter to Oregon's congressional delegation, asking them to pass legislation which would secure the right to abortion for all women in the United States. And that's why I added language to this ordinance, which directs the city's attorney's office to draft a Friends of the Court brief, which outlines this council's legal objections to Texas's abortion ban. And we should use those arguments to convince the Supreme Court to overturn Texas's anti-abortion ban. Now, let's turn to the ordinance before us today. I support some elements of this ordinance, and I have questions about other pieces. I support sending a letter to Oregon's congressional delegation demanding that they pass a law which writes Roe versus Wade into law. Indeed, I'm the person who introduced that language into this ordinance. I support directing the city attorney to write an amicus brief, which outlines this council's legal objections to Texas's anti-abortion law. And indeed, I am the person on this council who introduced that language into this ordinance. However, there is one element in this proposal which gives me pause. Specifically, I oppose spending $200,000 of Portland taxpayer dollars to fund reproductive care for women in Texas. Now, I understand and sympathize with the instincts behind this proposal. However, spending $200,000 of Portland taxpayer dollars to pay for reproductive care for people who live in Texas is bad policy. And here's why. That action does nothing to change or challenge Texas's anti-abortion law. You can only overturn a state law through the actions of a court or by convincing Congress to write Roe versus Wade into law. This $200,000 does not do that. Second, the city of Portland does not fund healthcare services. In our form of government, the responsibility for funding healthcare falls upon the county or on state government. Third, our city is overwhelmed by multiple crises, and this council should focus on solving those. We have a gun violence crisis, we have a homelessness crisis, we have a trash crisis, and we have a pandemic. At times like this, I believe this council should focus our resources on solving the problems Portlanders face every day when they leave their homes. And that's why I'm introducing an amendment to this ordinance, which would eliminate the $200,000 allocation from this proposal. I've drafted language for this amendment, and I believe the city attorney has it. It reads, I move to delete the following provisions related to the allocation of funding. In the title of the resolution, delete the remaining language following, quote, Texas's ban on abortion. In the final whereas paragraph, delete the remaining language following, quote, secure facilities, and delete in full the be it resolved paragraph directing the budget office to include general fund unrestricted contingency resources in the mayor's fall supplemental budget. These changes will remove the allocation of funding from the resolution. Do I have a second?
Colleagues, is there a second for Commissioner Mapp's amendment? I'm not seeing a second.
Mr. Mayor, colleagues, if I may, I have a compromise amendment which I would like to put forward. Instead of stripping the $200,000 allocation from this ordinance, I propose that we consider this funding request as part of the city's fall bump process. The city attorney has the language for this amendment. The amendment would do the following things. In the be it resolved paragraph regarding general fund unrestricted contingency resources in the mayor's fall supplemental budget ordinance, delete the phrase, quote, the city budget office shall include $200,000 in, and replace it with the phrase, quote, the city of Portland shall consider an appropriation of. This ordinance will, this change will have council make a funding decision as part of the fall supplemental budget ordinance. To sum up, what I'm suggesting here is that instead of making this allocation today, we consider this as part of our fall bump process, and we can compare this $200,000 expenditure to other budget priorities that we may have. Colleagues, do I have a second?
Calling a second for Commissioner Maps. I don't see a second, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, colleagues, I have a third compromise proposal, which I would like to bring forward. This is not an amendment, it is a motion. I propose that we delay the vote on this ordinance so that we can vote on it next week as a regular agenda item. This would allow additional public notice and public input. Do I have a second?
Colleagues, is there a second for Commissioner Mapp's amendment? I'm not seeing one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Commissioner Maps. Very good. With that, are there any other questions, or can I call the roll? I'm not seeing any questions. Please call the roll, Keelan.
Hardesty.
Commissioner, you are muted.
Yes, I was on mute. Mayor, I believe you have allowed me to be the last speaker on this vote.
Oh, I was not aware of that, but I'm happy to do that. We'll let Commissioner Hardesty go last. Can you rotate her to the end of the call, please?
Sure. Next up, Maps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, colleagues. In the 8 months and 2 weeks we've sat on this council, we have voted on about 700 resolutions and ordinances. And the vote I take today is one of the most difficult votes I have made to date. There are items in this ordinance which I support, and I have listed those. However, I also believe that allocating $200,000 of Portland taxpayer dollars to fund reproductive care for women from Texas is a highly unusual expenditure which does not advance a meaningful legal or legislative challenge to Texas's unconstitutional anti-abortion law. That's why I introduced an amendment to delete that expenditure from this ordinance. A majority of this council disagreed with my amendment. As a compromise, I introduced an amendment that said that this council would consider this expenditure as part of the city's upcoming fall pump process, and a majority of this council disagreed with that amendment. And then as a third compromise, I put forward a motion that we move this allocation and this ordinance to next week's council so that we could hear public testimony and get public feedback on it. And again, a majority of this council disagreed with that proposal. Now, I appreciate your clarity here because it allows us to cut to brass tacks on what I think this debate is about. I'm deeply uncomfortable with the $200,000 allocation in this ordinance. That money does not further the legal or legislative work that needs to be done in order to overturn Texas's unjust anti-abortion laws. This council has not compared the value of this $200,000 expenditure against the many other demands that we have on our resources. And this council even declined to give adequate notice to the public so that we could get public feedback on this expenditure. All of that strikes me as being highly unusual. And Mr. Mayor, colleagues, I am out of ideas on how we can reconcile this $200,000 expenditure with the values of good government like accountability and transparency. And for those reasons, I vote no.
Rubio.
I just want to again reiterate my appreciation to my colleagues for denouncing this extreme Texas law and for pursuing patient-centered actions today. Not meaningless actions, but meaningful ones that will make a difference in people's lives. When you spent time working in community or are from impacted and marginalized communities, you know this in a real way and in personal ways. Judging by the emails, letters, and calls our offices have received, I'm also grateful that we live in a community that values these same things. Everyone deserves the right to make safe decisions about their own bodies and about their own healthcare. I also want to thank the advocates and service providers who shared their testimony and their truth today, and the hundreds of thousands of women and individuals who have the courage to speak out about this extreme law and about their own rights. I'm proud for Portland to join the ranks of cities like Austin and New York in taking these actions. And my hope is that other communities take action in the ways that support frontline communities as well. To our impacted communities on the ground in Texas, we see you and we stand with you. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and colleagues. Thank you for bringing this item today in support of women's reproductive and health rights. I really appreciate your commitments to this vital issue facing our nation. Yesterday, and actually over the last week, I've had the opportunity to speak with a couple of people who are important to me. Dr. Ann Udall, who serves as the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood of Columbia-Willamette, and the former leader there, Stacey Cross, who now has that role down in South Bay, San Jose. It reminded me that Oregon is truly a safe haven for women's reproductive rights and health choices. We discussed how our state has the least restrictive laws on abortion in the country and the most access to gender-affirming healthcare. It's something that makes me very proud as an Oregonian. The landscape surrounding access to abortion has certainly darkened, not only in Texas, but as mentioned by some of the guest speakers, across the country, trigger laws will continue to come forth. And that makes our work here in Portland more important than ever. This resolution demonstrates that we will continue leading the country on women's reproductive and health rights, and that we will be here for our neighbors, can you say Idaho, who will need our help. I am pleased that this city council is stepping up and that we will continue to align with other jurisdictions in our state and in our nation to provide necessary services for women's health care. The likelihood of these barbaric, unconscionable restrictions spreading beyond Texas, again, to neighboring states just to the east of us, is fairly high. So now is the time to invest, to prepare to support our neighbors by welcoming them to our safe and secure haven in their time of need. This elder queer activist is certainly a proud feminist at this moment. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Colleagues, thank you. This has been a great discussion, and I want to thank those who came and testified on behalf of this resolution. There is no question that there are many different angles and approaches to this. I want to thank my colleague, Commissioner Mapps, for making a strong case for both legislative as well as legal challenges to the Texas law that is already encompassed in a resolution previously passed by the Portland City Council. But I agree it is important to include it in this resolution as well to underscore that we are still 100% committed to both legal and legislative strategies pursuant to this issue. With regard to the criticism that this is money that should not be spent, I want to be clear that once people make the decision to come from anywhere to our community to take advantage of the healthcare opportunities that exist here, we are going to serve them alongside people who are from the city of Portland. And so the dollars that would be going towards this effort are in fact for people who will walk into healthcare providers in our community, particularly those who do not have access or those who experience barriers to access. And I think it is very important that we make this statement with $200,000. I also just want to be clear, this council regularly supports efforts targeted towards the homeless population in this community. We all know that the city of Portland provides services in the absence of other services being provided in the greater metro area. So we know that when we invest in the homeless population here in the city of Portland, that we are in fact using local taxpayer dollars to support people who come from other communities to receive those services. And I believe the last point in time count indicated that approximately 15% of the people on our streets, based on a survey, are not from the city of Portland. That means of the $50 million approximately that we allocate, somewhere between $5 and $7.5 million is being allocated towards people who are not residents of the city of Portland. Comparatively, $200,000 for a critical healthcare need, as well as a statement of importance of the rights of women, seems like a small price to pay. I appreciate the collaborative approach that was used throughout this process. And Commissioner Mapps, I'm looking at you too. You and your team were very helpful to this effort. At the end of the day, you didn't vote yes, but you helped shape it. And so I still want to express my gratitude to you. I want to express my gratitude to my colleagues and to our community partners who helped us all along the way on this important issue. With that, I am happy to vote aye. And Commissioner Hardesty will take up the final vote.
Thank you, Mayor. And
you have to be, sorry, Keelan has to call you. It's just the rule.
Oh, thank you. Hardesty.
Thank you.
I know.
Keelan. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. I am really happy that we had this conversation today. out in the open, in the public. What I believe, what we're doing today, I believe is vital. What Texas did recently was essentially overturn Roe versus Wade, wiping out 40 plus years of legal precedent that previously established the basic human right of choice. The law bans abortions before most people even know they are pregnant. And it enforces the ban by allowing any person to sue those seeking or those aiding anyone seeking an abortion up to $10,000. In short, this is revolting. Make no mistake, when the US Supreme Court declined to block this unconstitutional Texas law, this instantly became a threat to comprehensive health care for all those that can give birth. A threat to abortion access anywhere is a threat to abortion access everywhere, including Oregon. Almost every year, abortion restrictions are brought into the Oregon legislature by anti-choice organizations. We preserve our reproductive rights locally despite that, because we do not take these threats lightly. Now we are facing the biggest threat to abortion rights this country has seen since Roe versus Wade became law of the land over 40 years ago, and I refuse to take this lightly. We know this extreme legislation won't stop in Texas. It's part of a national agenda to end all access to abortion procedures. 2021 saw almost 600 abortion restrictions introduced through state legislative bodies, the most since Roe versus Wade decision in 1973. When abortion is banned in one state, it increases the demand on abortion providers in other states, like Oregon. Today, we are helping to ensure abortion providers are resourced to help with this influx of demand, while making a statement that this Texas law is unacceptable. It's easy for those without the ability to give birth to call this perfunctory or not an urgent issue facing Portlanders. I don't have that luxury, and I will defend my body and my right to choose. This is a moment of national reckoning, and I believe Portlanders want to see their leaders address it, along with the many other challenges we face. We can directly correlate this budget allocation to improving people's lives. I am so proud that Oregon is a national leader for reproductive rights, and this is a moment in history that requires leadership. I want to thank NARAL, Pro-Choice Oregon, and all the amazing organizations that fight for our basic rights every day here in Oregon, Texas, and across the nation. I wish this could go even further, as I personally support a travel ban and all the other fun things we could have done. I'm happy that we reached a consensus with the majority of my colleagues to move this important effort forward. Real leadership in the end always comes down to doing the right thing. It's a strength to take a step back and listen. It's important to follow the lead of those with the most knowledge of what will help and those harmed by this law. And this is what this city council ultimately is doing today. This is the correct decision. As a former NARAL board member who worked 2 years ago to pass a resolution directing our city attorneys to help other states facing abortion bans, I'm honored and privileged that we are going to put our money where our mouth is, and I'm proud to vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. And with that, colleagues, the resolution passes and we are adjourned. Thank you.